All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the June 10th meeting of the Albany Unified School District Board of Education. May I have a roll call for attendance, please, Jackie?
Student Board Member Lee. Here. Member Lowe.
Here.
Member Black.
Here.
Vice President Maris.
Here.
President Knight.
Here. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance, if anyone would like to join us.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We did not hold closed session this evening, so there was no action taken in closed session. So we can move right on to approving the agenda. Do I have a motion on the agenda?
I'd like to move that before we undertake any other business, that we stand for a minute of silence in recognition of the death of our mayor, Peggy Thompson.
I'll second.
All right, so that's a motion to add this now as an item to the agenda next after we approve it.
Yes.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so we'll unanimously add that. And that would also give us, I think, opportunities to make comments if anyone would like to, or if anyone in the audience would like to. As, I don't know if everybody's heard the news, but Mayor Peggy Thompson passed away this weekend. And she is someone I didn't know personally, but I've certainly known of her since I started paying attention to things here in Albany. She's been a public servant here for a long time. She served on the school board for many years, and I know some of my colleagues knew her personally. And so, why don't we take a minute, have a moment of silence, and then perhaps we can make some speak first, speak after.
Sure.
So, yeah, why don't we take a minute? Thank you. And would any board members like to make any comments? Alan?
The flags are flying at half-staff in Albany this week in recognition of the loss of a great woman in Albany. Peggy put in nearly 40 years of community service, 16 of those years on the school board and as board president for several years. She spent 14 years serving on the Albany City Council and several years as mayor. She also served on numerous community committees. She served on committees in the county. She was an excellent representative for Albany in the state as well as the county. She achieved a lot for this community. What I remember most about her was that she was very cheerful and candid.
I did not know her personally either, but I did get to see her at city council meetings, and I know that she was on the school board. She was always, a great advocate for Albany and for our students, and you could count on her to speak only when she had something worth saying, and to have thought behind her words. So she'll be sorely missed.
I did know her a bit, and as a woman in a leadership position, I was really interested in seeing how she acted and talking to her and getting a sense of her. And in Albany, she has been a very active mother and grandmother. She has a granddaughter at the high school right now. And so she was always very active on a personal level. But the thing that I really respected about her is she really understood what it meant to say that we're elected to be public servants, that our job is to listen and to understand what the people in Albany want, and to listen and to act on what they say. And I thought she was a great role model of that.
If anyone in the audience would like to say anything, please feel free to come on up. I don't know if any of you knew her personally or have any thoughts you want to share. Totally optional, but certainly feel free. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I think
Thank you.
we need to continue this evening, as I'm sure Peggy Thompson would want us to do in the interests of the public service. So our next item is to recognize the girls' wrestling team. And I will sort of kick it off by saying we've been really impressed by the national standing of this team and wanted to have a little time this evening to give them some recognition. There are certificates for the coach and the team. And we'll start this evening with Zeke, who can present a certificate to the coach, and then the coach will have the opportunity to present certificates to the team.
Definitely. Right. I just want to introduce Coach Jason Griffin as the coach of the CIF State Champion girls wrestling team, as well as the co-national champions for the 2013 and 14 season. Coach Griffin, come on up.
All right, before I start introducing the wrestlers, I just want to make sure that we all know that Coach Tyrone Rose was a big part of the girls stepping up and being as good as they were. So, Tyrone Rose. All right, we're going to start with our little ladies of the team. This one is for Ireri Morales. She has been on the team this is her second year now. She's a hard worker, always, putting up a good fight. She might be tiny, but her heart is way bigger than her body. So, Ireri Morales. Next we have Hannah Minsky. She's another little lady, but she works hard every day. And sometimes those people that have to put in the extra effort to get the success are the ones that you really recognize as the epitome of what wrestling is about. And this girl really puts in work every day, works through aches and pains, and shows up to every match. So, Hannah Minsky. Next we have Brianna Padilla. She's been wrestling for a few years, went through the whole middle school program, has been at the high school, had a lot of success last year, was up and down this year, but she's really put in the extra effort, and I look forward to seeing her as one of the elite wrestlers of the team next year. Brianna Padilla. Next, we have Anastasia Melanche. She is somebody who's been there every day. I don't know if she's missed a practice in 3 years. She's there, she's always putting in the effort, and next year I look forward to seeing her as one of our wrestlers at the state tournament. Anastasia Melanche. Next, we have a sophomore who's kind of just showed up in the wrestling room one day, and all of a sudden we were like, who is this girl? She just does everything. Her name's Eva Peroth. She placed 6th in the state this year as a sophomore, and we really look forward to seeing her being unstoppable next year. Eva Peroth. So my next 3 girls all showed up at the high school room pretty much the same day. Some did a little middle school, but they all stepped into the high school room at the same day, and all of them really were like, holy crap, where did these girls come from? And, you know, every day they've been there, and I've been like, man, they're elite. They can be elite athletes, and they put in the work. They never mess around at practice, and it really shows in what they've been able to do and come together and do as the team for us. So I'm going to start with Nayeli Patino. She wrestled probably some of the hardest matches throughout the season. I put her against some of the toughest opponents throughout the whole year, and it really showed when she went into the state tournament. She lost 1 match in the semifinals, ended up finishing 3rd place in the state. Wow. Nayeli Patino. My next one is Erica Sotelo. She has worked really hard throughout the season. She has also put in a lot of extra work in all of the off seasons, and you can tell with her wrestling and how she consistently improves, whether she's in the wrestling room or whether she shows up the next season with some new stuff. She had ups and downs throughout the season, but she really peaked when it counted. She ended up losing in the finals of North Coast and placing 2nd, and came back and had a rematch against the same girl in the state finals and beat her. Ended up 1st in the state. Erica Sotelo. Last but not least, I have Chanel Chowlet. She is a phenomenal athlete. I can't say enough about her in terms of her as a person as well as an athlete. Last year, she was the undefeated state champion. This year, she came back. She had 1 little bump on the road, but losing 1 match wasn't a big deal. Came and won it all and really helped lead the team to the team title as state champions. So, Chanel Chowlet.
Coach,
Thank
could
you,
we have a
Coach.
picture with all the girls, please?
Right. So maybe we want to put this on our Facebook page, so
Yes.
coach,
Yes,
maybe want to include the athletic director, the
absolutely.
principal,
Zeke?
let them. This is the Facebook picture, so.
Where do you want us to stand?
Jackie,
How do you want them to
you're
stand?
going to right there?
Well, let's move out of the way.
No, let's not here.
You can stay. Dr. Barone, would you like to be in the picture with your, okay. With your stellar athletes? Some of your stellar.
you were, sure.
You want
Thank
to
you.
excuse them if they want to go.
Oh, yeah, I think Alan's just going to say. Yeah, so Alan.
So I just want to say a couple words about the wrestling team. I've been following them for a long time. Coach Griffin is a product of the wrestling program. Coach Rose is a product of the wrestling program. And they're all the product of one of our greatest coaches, Coach Kermit Banks. And one last thing, we are so lucky to have Title IX. To have Title IX that allows women to compete equally in sports in high school.
Yeah.
This is.
Thank you all very much for coming. It's really an honor to have you here tonight and to be able to recognize you in this way, and best of luck next season. We would never think of making you stay. You're welcome to stay if you want to, but it does get a little boring here on out, so you will offend nobody by leaving at this point, and that goes for anyone here. So thank you very much. All right. All right. So moving along this evening. We have the consent calendar. Any questions, comments on the consent calendar or a motion?
So we have the two staff reports.
Right.
Yeah, well, I have no comments, so I'll move we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
So that consent calendar is approved unanimously.
Could somebody just close the doors in the back there? So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then I think Student Board Member Lee is here to give us the student member report.
So this would be the last report that I will give. And so first thing up, the senior award ceremony was held this past Friday. There were record numbers of family members and friends in the audience. And thank you to the board members who came and watched this very special event. And then the juniors and seniors prom was held at the Cranway Pavilion in Richmond this past Saturday. It was an amazing event. And then upcoming, we have the seniors graduation ceremony, which will be held this Friday at 5 p.m. in the Albany High School Gymnasium. Please be there to watch us graduate. And then after the award ceremony, the seniors grads night will be held at the Albany Bowling Alley from midnight to 5 a.m. the next day. And finally, the results of Albany High School's 2014 to 2015 student government appointed members have been posted on the high school website. The student board member representative of next year will be Michael Singer, who is going to be an upcoming junior. He'll be taking the places of Chelsea and mine. Yeah,
Great.
That's all.
Do you know if we have enough adult volunteers for grad night?
No, we do not.
Okay, let me just put in a word. The reason we have this party, grad night, is because traditionally, all over the country, kids go out, celebrate, get on the road, and die. And we're providing a safe place for our kids to party all night long if they want to. So it's really important that people step up and be there and make it a safe place for our kids. So anybody who's listening, if you haven't volunteered yet, it's a lot of fun. Just go there and watch the kids have a good time. There's food, there's games, and there's a lot of kids enjoying themselves.
Yeah, any donation of your time or food, anything like that will be much appreciated. Thank you.
And isn't it followed the next morning with a pancake breakfast?
Right, so it would
No, not quite.
be waffles.
Waffle.
Not quite, but it will be something fun and lovely. And morning is, you know, it goes from from midnight to 5. It ends at 5.
Okay.
So breakfast would be more like 4 in the morning. or
4 in the
something along
morning.
those. So anyone who wants to come join me at the 2 a.m. shift, the 2 a.m. shift, and I don't even have a senior yet, okay? So I challenge you to come and join me.
All right, thank you, Lauren. So then we have 2 staff reports this evening. First staff report's on equal opportunity schools.
I'm going to invite Dr. Barone to come forward and introduce his co-presenter. And Jackie, you can get the presentation up.
So I'm very pleased to introduce to you Niambi Clay. Niambi Clay is a consultant or our advisor with Equal Opportunity Schools Program. Very briefly, this is a grant that we applied for a little bit over a year ago, and we're fortunate enough to receive. And the purpose of it was to increase the enrollment of target populations or underrepresented populations in our advanced placement courses. And I want to say that, you know, Niambi's going to give you kind of a numeric or statistical analysis of the results of our efforts. I will say that the actual results go way beyond the numbers. The conversations we've had as a result of the surveys and the data that has come forth are really beginning to transform the way our teachers and our students think about achievement, about what it is to support students, about what it means to really create a program that builds a foundation for kids who have not previously had an opportunity to take these very rigorous and high-level courses that are absolutely the gatekeeper or the gateway to the more elite universities and then jobs and careers and so on. But we're really about establishing a foundation so that all kids can learn in equitable ways. And Niambi has been a really important coach and facilitator of this effort. And so without further ado, I turn it over to her.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Dr. Barone gave a pretty good overview, so I'll just run through the slides. I'll try to leave a few minutes at the end for your questions. So our goal this year was to actually achieve equity in the AP program at Albany High School, and I'll show you a chart later that shows you what equity looks like. But we also, in that process, want to increase AP success at the school and then sustain that participation and that success. In order to kind of bring together all the data that we needed to do this, we surveyed all the students, and it was a pretty good response rate, 82%, and then all of the faculty. And so that in itself is a feat to actually go out and survey all the students and the faculty at your school. We also combine that with demographic data from the district, academic data, and then some peer research that I'll go through. So this graph shows you student aspirations at Albany High School. We asked the staff about their beliefs in the number of students that want to graduate from college or obtain a college degree. And so the staff had pretty high expectations. They think about 90% of the students want to get their college degree. But when we asked the students, actually 95% of them responded, so that's a really high response rate, and actually it's very common around the country for a lot of students to want to obtain that college degree. But if we look at historical college completion rates, students only graduated about 31%, and so that's what that red bar is that you see down there at the bottom. The reason that we at EOS focus on AP is because of the research, and the research actually says that academic rigor is the biggest driver of college completion. And so we try to make sure that students get access to the academic rigor while they're in high school, before they're in college on their own. And this is true even when you're controlling for prior academic performance. So even students that are performing lower still benefit from the rigor of harder high school classes. And this is true in terms of AP for students who don't pass the exam but still sit for the exam. So there's still benefits for being in the class even if you don't pass the exam. We asked the faculty questions about AP, how they feel about it, if they think it matters. And actually, the faculty responded very highly. 85% of them think the students would benefit or be better prepared for college if they take an AP course. But then we also asked them about the diversity in the AP program. And there was still a majority that thought that the diversity, or the lack of diversity, was a problem at Albany High School. And there's a couple quotes there from the faculty. So this is a chart that shows you how we measure equity with the partners that we work with. Around the country, what you find is high-income white and Asian students are mostly the students in AP. And so when we work with a school, we say, what does that participation look like? For Albany, it's a little under 67% this year. So just looking at the group of high-income white and Asian students, 67% of them are taking AP courses. But if you look at other groups, you'll notice the percentages are much lower. And so we call this our gaps chart. It's just our planning tool. What we do is we try to figure out how many students would it take for us to add in each of those demographic groups so that all of the groups are participating at that 67% rate. Any questions on the gaps chart? Because sometimes people have questions on that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why the top of those bars isn't 100%, why it looks like it's around 75%.
100% would mean that you have AP for all. So 100% would mean that every single student in every demographic group is in AP. And so our work is really to try to get it equitable, and then schools can continue to grow the program. We do have schools that actually take on a policy of AP for all after working with us.
And so the 26, just to follow up, the 26...
is a planning tool because when we go out and we recruit underrepresented students, that, what we call the benchmark group, always rises. And so we don't want people to think that we're going to stop here when we know it's going to rise.
Thank you.
Is it possible to adjust that screen just a little bit because we're missing the bottom piece? Do you see we're missing on the screen?
I can tell you what it is.
I might be able to do that.
Oh, thanks. While she's doing it, these are white and Asian combined because those
There
are
you go.
Can you see it now? Oh, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question on an earlier slide, the 31% that you expect to graduate from university that go. And then it says that it's based on,
This is based on
National
the National
average?
Student Clearinghouse. So what we try to do is
could you speak into the microphone?
Oh, sorry. So what we try to do is actually get the number for the specific group that we're working with, but if we can't get that from the National Clearinghouse, then we use the average rate.
So I think it would be valuable sometime soon to get that figure for Albany.
So
School
that's
students?
part of our contract, is actually asking the district to sign up for their National Clearinghouse account so that you can keep that record and watch that percentage.
And then the rest of the question. What is the cutoff for between low income and high income? We seem to have an awful lot of high income people in Albany.
That's a very good question. We use the free and reduced lunch list or meal list to determine whether a student is low income or not. But we know that there are many low income students still caught in the high income bar because they don't apply for free and reduced lunch list. But that's the only kind of gauge that we have for income status.
So then it seems to be income has a much stronger impact than race.
That's traditionally been the case in social science research.
I think there's an important message there that everybody can learn if they're given an opportunity.
Exactly, definitely.
Pat?
So I just wanted to clarify, the 31% college completion rate that you got from the National Student Clearinghouse is a national
Right.
average
Right.
of these groups, not a California average, not an Albany High average.
Right,
It's a
correct.
national average.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So when we are collecting data from the students, from the teachers, there are three kind of key pieces that we look at. And the first piece is information. So we ask students about the information they have in AP about signing up. Do they know the benefits about AP? So from our data, over half the students had some type of information gap. Some of them had multiple information gaps, but they fell into one of these 4 bullets. They either didn't know what AP was at all, they didn't know the benefits, they didn't know how to enroll, or they said, I haven't received enough information, I need more information about what it is. The second thing we ask them about is expectations. And so this is very common, these numbers, that many students will fall into expectations. So we ask them about adult encouragement, and that's both at school and at home. Has anyone encouraged you to sign up for AP? We ask them if their parents expect them to attend college, and then we ask them about their perception of being welcome in an AP course, because we just want to get an idea of who is really encouraging them to take an AP course. When we survey teachers, we ask them about academic predictors, or rather, actually not academic, just predictors of success. And so this slide is actually very common. If you notice, the top 3 are not what people would commonly think. So the top one was student motivation. Teachers said that the biggest predictor of success in a class is actually student motivation. Second was quality of teaching, and then the third was student interest. And then when you look at what people commonly think of predictors in classes, the staff actually said the GPA and the prerequisites and the test scores are actually much lower. And we find this all over the country, yes.
So this slide then was, this is a summary of what Albany High teachers perceived.
Right.
And so I am wondering, with your experience in, across the nation and other schools, is this reflective of the research of what it actually takes to be successful?
There's some research, so we'll get into the research in a second. We're trying to get people to think outside of typical academic criteria, I would say. So I'll say 2 things. One, this is very common amongst what faculty say. All the schools we work with, actually student motivation, student interest are usually the top 2, and then quality of teaching usually comes 3rd. So actually Albany did a little better in scooting that quality of teaching up. But what we do find, there is some research next about non-academic predictors of success, so I'll go into those as well.
So test scores are also about IQ, is that?
So the questions, we didn't ask about IQ, but we asked them about growth mindset, so if you think you can grow your IQ. And so I'm gonna move into the non-academic predictors. So the reason we ask faculty this is because we wanna build on that. We acknowledge that they even say academic predictors aren't the strongest, or academic criteria aren't the strongest predictors. So then we say, how can we expand then what you're using at your school to identify students and not just use GPA, test scores, prerequisites? So, and this is where the research comes in. So in expanding the views of what we're gonna use or what we did use to identify students, we looked at 4 different categories, what we call asset categories, student assets. So the first was growth mindset, the second was grit, and then the third was academic sense of self, and then we still include academic performance in there as well. So growth mindset is research around whether or not students think they can grow their intelligence. And what we find is students who feel that they can continue to grow their intelligence, it's not I'm either smart or I'm not, they actually succeed better in their classes because they're willing to stretch and continue to grow it. So this is one of the things that we asked the students was around growth mindset. There's a set of questions. It's not just one question. There's a set of questions that they then get scored on. So as you can see, about 2/3 of the students had growth mindset. And then out of the students we were targeting, there were about 109 rising 11th and 12th graders that we were targeting that had growth mindset.
Excuse me, could I get a clarification on that? So 2/3 of the entire student body that
Right,
you
of all the
surveyed
students we surveyed.
at Albany High?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
So yeah, these statistics are out of all the students we surveyed, and then we broke it out because we're trying to identify more underrepresented students. So then we broke out what those numbers are for underrepresented students as well. The second thing the research says is around grit, and students who have grit and can persevere through a challenge. We know some of the students that we're targeting have not had as rigorous of courses as AP courses, so we really are trying to target those students. When they hit that challenge, they're not gonna just give up, they're gonna push through it. And so about half of the students, all of the students surveyed, demonstrated some type of grit, and then out of the targeted students, we had about 73 that had, that said from their survey responses they demonstrated grit. Yes?
How are you identifying the 15%? Do you know when they respond to
Right, so there are, so for each one of these like asset categories, there are several questions that pertain to this particular category, and then we score them. So most of the questions had maybe a 7-point scale, so there's a whole scoring rubric to figure out, you know, the student answered this way on these 4 questions, so they probably have grit versus answering a different way.
Excuse me. This is being recorded and people are watching at home. So you're perfectly welcome to ask the question, but we need you on the microphone.
Or we could repeat the question.
Jackie, do you have the portable microphone?
Yeah.
I think the question is, how do you know they're underrepresented students? How do you identify?
Oh, okay, yeah, we have details on all the students. So we get the demographic data from the district, so each that's why we survey all the kids, because we need to know what that individual student said on the survey. So we have all their demographic data, we have all their academic data, and then we add in the survey data as well.
So it's not an anonymous survey, you know?
No,
Yes.
it
So
is
you know the
not
name
an-
of each student?
Yes, it is not an anonymous survey, because we really are trying to target individual students. The third thing we looked at was academic sense of self. So this research is around people who have goals, but also know where to go, the resources, how to fulfill those goals. And so self-efficacy is around being able to say, I have this goal that I really want to achieve, but the academic strategies piece is around the resources. Do I know where to go in the school to get help? Do I know how to ask the teacher for help when I want it? We find that a lot of underrepresented students actually don't feel comfortable always pushing back on the teacher, so we're trying to get at those types of criteria inside the student. So the bubbles that you see are around all of the students. So 64% said they had self-efficacy, 43 academic strategies, that's all of the students, and then we broke it out by just rising 11th and 12th graders right underneath there. But on the side, the bar graphs actually represent the underrepresented students. And so for the underrepresented students, 61% of them said they had self-efficacy, and 43 said they had academic strategies. But the research is really about where these two cross. You need the belief that you can achieve a goal, but then you also need the strategies to do so. And so there were 39% of the underrepresented students that we surveyed said that they believe they have both of those.
Could I ask
Yes.
a question of clarification? So this is, these represent Albany, and the two halves of the page represent the difference between the entire population and the underrepresented students.
Exactly.
Could you tell me nationally whether there is generally more of a discrepancy between the mainstream population and the underrepresented population, or is it similar?
I can't tell you nationally, I can only tell you with the schools that I work with.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah, it's pretty much aligned as it is
Okay.
here. It's always pretty close in terms of these percentages for academic sense of self.
Thank you.
And then the last piece is back to our traditional academic performance, but we look at it in a different way. And so when we surveyed all the teachers, at the end of their survey, they got a list of students who have not taken AP before, and we just asked them just to check, who do you think would benefit to take an AP class? And we just want you to recommend kids. And so the teachers actually advocated for 71% of students who are not currently in AP to actually be taking an AP class. But if you look to the right, that is the breakout of the underrepresented group. So 121 of the students that we're targeting were actually recommended by teachers to take an AP course. And then the second type of academic kind of analysis that we do is to look at the current AP cohort. And what we do there is look at the top 75th percentile of both grades and test scores and say, does this student have test scores that are comparable to the current AP students already at Albany High School, to the top 75th percentile of the students that are already at Albany High School? Because when we recruit students, we want to be able to say, look, you already have test scores that are comparable to the students who are in AP courses. Why don't you give this a try? So those are the types of academic analysis we do. In this process, we created what we call a student at a glance, and it's really just like a baseball card on a student. So it gives all of this information, all of this data we're collecting, we summarize it into a baseball card. If you look at this baseball card, it has what we traditionally use to sign students up for AP. It has the GPA, you know the student is a rising 12th grader, and then it has test scores. But it doesn't give you enough information. So when we start to fill it in, you get a much better complete picture on the student. You know what their career interests are, what their subject interests are. These are things we ask them on the survey. And you can see they have 4 teachers, 4 of their current teachers. So that's like 4 out of 6 teachers who said you need to be taking an AP course. But if we look in the barrier section, it's a little hard to read. This student said that they've never been encouraged by an adult to take an AP course. So this student at a glance is a good thing to sit down with a student and say, even though you haven't been verbally encouraged, look, you have 4 teachers that think you're ready to take on that challenge. And since I'm running out of time, I'll skip this one, but it's the same idea, and the little stars at the bottom have to do with that comparable AP cohort. So that means that this student's test scores are comparable to the top 75th percentile of the current AP cohort.
What do the little red apples mean?
Yes, those are the little red apples. So that means they have 4 of their current 6 teachers that said they need to be signing up. So this is where we started at the beginning of the year. This SCAPS chart represents what the AP program looked like this year before Dr. Barone and his staff did all the recruitment and targeting of students. Okay, I don't know what that is. So I don't know the cell range. They're supposed to be numbers, so just ignore all the things that say cell range. But as you can see, the numbers went way up. The red line tells you where the participation of the benchmark group was this year. And so we're trying to bring everybody up to that red line, if not above. And so they got pretty close. That's a better chart. This chart is a better representation. So the blue shows you where they are this year, and then the green shows you the students that are signed up for the fall. So as you can see, each of the demographic groups increased a great deal. And these are still by percentages. So if you look at medium, high income, Black African American, even though it was 7 this year and it's 7 next year, it's a bigger percentage of that population next year. So it's still an increase in terms of population. That's not in there. So this slide is supposed to be the, oh, thank you.
Yeah, this was the most interesting one. So I was
So part of the work we do is make sure that we don't just throw kids in and say, you know, sink or swim. We really want to make sure they have supports in place. And so the staff has been working really hard talking about supports and figuring out what would be helpful to students. And so they've planned a few things. There is a summer AP boot camp that will be happening this summer for students. There will be some after-school workshops next year to help students with like note-taking and things that really help you in an AP course and going to college as well. There will be an advisory group to help target students and make sure we keep our eye on the kids and make sure, you know, some adult is checking in with them. And then the other piece is we don't want to just say student support, we want to also support teachers. And so there will be an AP teacher team that actually comes together so they can share best practices, share what's working in classes, and really be able to, we don't want the teachers to feel like they're overwhelmed with having students who may not have the rigor of their previous AP cohort. So it's really important to support the teachers as well. That is it in a nutshell. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It appears in one of the last charts where you're showing the increase in numbers in AP, that we've originally had about 300 in AP, the purple line. Is that a total of about 300?
Yeah, so, oh, you mean all together?
Yeah, I tried to add it up quickly. It looks like about 300, but is that?
40, excuse me, I would say around 300, a little over 300.
And then we picked up maybe another 50? So we're at 350 or? I'm not going to pin you down to those numbers, but teachers indicated there was well over 500 that were.
You've picked up more because, like I said, that benchmark
Sure.
always grows.
Yeah.
This chart just represents students. So it's only if a student has at least one AP class, they're on this chart. So it doesn't show you if a student is taking 3 or 4 AP
Right.
classes, it wouldn't be reflected in this.
But we are seeing some growth. That's my
Oh, definitely.
question.
You're seeing growth in the number of students, but then that's also going to be reflected in the number of actual seats in the classes, because some of those students take more than one AP course.
But we're not seeing the growth to the extent that teachers recognize the numbers that could be in AP, like almost 600 in the quarterly.
Right, but I think
survey.
that is true, but this is more of an urgent 1 year, let's catch
No,
kids
this is great
while they're
progress.
in there, but there's still work to be done in terms of the pipeline and really making sure students are more ready before, because you don't want to do this like urgent, you know, survey all your kids and all your staff every year. It's a hard, Dr. Barone can tell you, it's a hard thing to do. And so part of our sustainability planning is around looking at what a plan would look like for the pipeline, continuing to work with students at Albany High School, but also working with the middle school, who will then work back with the elementary school to make sure students are more prepared. Yes.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, well, to follow on what you just said, in terms of the grit and persistence and kids feeling that they're ready for this, are you familiar with the research that has shown that praising kids, especially in the younger grades, for their intelligence does not help them achieve, whereas praising them for effort does?
Yes, so that's part of the mindset, actually, research around what types of praise are good. And that's why I say the students who just think intelligence or not are usually those students who have been told, oh, you're smart or you're not, versus towards the effort, praising their effort or how they're doing. The process teaches them to continue to develop their process.
Right, so it seems like we should be reaching out to the elementary teachers and parents.
And parents,
to make
yes.
sure they know about this research and know what to say to their kids.
Yes, I agree.
Pat?
I wanted to thank you and Dr. Barone, and I hope Dr. Barone will tell the staff, I think it's a wonderful effort, and it's wonderful to see the progress. We're always very interested in data-driven change. We want to see what the results will be so that we can have a sense of what needs to be invested in order for this trend of success to continue. So, and I have 2 other comments that are kind of on a tangent, but for this, in terms of the grant for this 2-year period, is it true?
It's really a 1-year period, and then you can use the money for the students who are in the fall. So this year was used to recruit, get the information, recruit, get the kids in there for the fall, and then the grant money is used to support them once they're in the classes.
So I would like to know if, as part of this cycle, I'm sure it's a very common question that you get, that are we going to see some data on how these students fare in both the coursework and also whether they sign up for the AP exams? And as you said, maybe it's not so important how they score, but, to see whether they sign up, and then the scores as well. So will you be summarizing that data?
Yeah, so in general, we do a first quarter data analysis where we compare this year's fall first quarter AP classes to next year's fall first quarter. So you see, basically that's used to see that the A's and the B's, they don't go down. And so we use that information to actually make the staff feel more comfortable once they see that the grades don't go down. Then we do that at the semester as well, compare semester grades from AP this year first semester to next year when the students are in the class. And then we do it also for the AP exams. So we examine what the AP exams look like that they just took now, and then compare those also to the AP exam scores over about a year from now.
I guess I'll be more specific in my question. So these sound like some really good supports that were passed out to us, and we'd look at that data so we could see whether things either remained the same for a more integrated population or went down and got a little bit better. But how will we know what supports are actually effective?
So that's part of the support plan that Dr. Barone is still working on, but there is a column specifically on effectiveness. How are you going to know that this specific support is effective? How will you measure it? And so they've worked on what the supports will be, but we're still finalizing the plan in the next couple weeks, but there is a column specifically for that to know how effective the support is. So it depends on how the school wants to measure it, but hopefully it will be in data around grades and academics. Some of it is surveying. We have schools that survey kids and ask them how they're doing. Are the supports working for them? So you can get at effectiveness in different ways. We haven't finalized the effectiveness piece yet.
Well, I just know how hard they're already burdened at the high school, and when we ask for data, I know how difficult it is for them. So I'm wondering, do you provide best practices for them, or models, or coaching, so that it will make, getting that data a little easier for them? Because, it must be important to you, too.
It is important. Data is getting data varies from district to district. And we actually, Dr. Brown and I have had conversations about the data issues in Albany and being able to get that data quickly and effectively. So we're going to continue to work on that. But if we can get the data, it's not a problem in terms of analyzing it. It's just getting it.
What do you mean, get the data?
So it varies at different schools, but like when we asked for a course enrollment update, the IDs that were at the high school didn't match the IDs that we got from the district. So then we have to go back to the district and say, these IDs are different. I need you to give me different IDs. So there can be little glitches like that in terms of getting data and being able to analyze it that we're still working on. But we are very data driven. Our whole organization is data driven. So that is our goal, I would say, is to analyze how well this is working and be able to course correct.
Well, we very much would appreciate any support that you can give, because that's been a source of frustration for the board. We want to support things that really help students. If we don't know for sure if particular things are having the effect that we want, it's not ethical for us to invest in that. So we would really appreciate any support, best practices that you can suggest or give, and let us know. And then there were just two quick tangents. So the Mindset Work, some of you may know or be interested in knowing, is it's based on a book by a psychologist whose last name is Dweck, Professor Dweck from Stanford, and it's been very interesting, and Paul has made some reference to it. So I'm interested in it because it gets at that percentage of kids who didn't have the growth mindset, who we just kind of shunted aside in looking at all of our other information. So, I hope that we might want to consider keeping that in mind in helping all students be more, feel more as if they can succeed, whether it's an AP class or not an AP class. So yeah, anyway, so that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Ms. Clay.
Thank you.
That's an excellent report, and it's great to see that. I mean, just that slide really, I think, shows what an effect you can have by, it's so much more level, the line. It's getting there. So.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
So thank you very much. We are running a little behind. I normally say if there's a question or comment from the audience, that this would be the time to run up and make it. So I'd like to open it up for that. All right, and seeing none, so we'll move on to our second staff report. Thank you very much. And the second staff report this evening is on the elementary site plans for the modular deployment, I guess you'd call it.
Yes.
Thanks, Marcia.
So Dawn Albright, our facility supervisor, and I were asked late last week to put together a presentation for you about the modular classrooms at the elementary site. And so Dawn and I are here to provide you some background and then talk about how the locations for those portable classrooms or module classrooms are being determined. So as it has been reported to the board, our district enrollment has been increasing, and I think you see that also in tonight's budget presentation. And as a result, our elementary, particularly our primary classrooms became larger than we're accustomed to, and that became a community concern. As a result of that, on November 12th, the board voted to reduce the class size at the elementary sites by adding one new modular classroom for 2014-15. And by doing that, it allows us to reduce those class sizes without moving families, many families, to different school sites to balance grade levels. So this is a map of Cornell, and Jackie, I don't know if we can fix it, but all right, yeah, it's on my computer, isn't it? All right, so Dawn, if you can get up and show where we're currently looking at placing that. There it is, I see it. I don't have a pointer. So this is where we're projecting to place the portable building at Cornell. I'm going to leave that slide up there so you can see it, but there's the next slide talks about the considerations. This is the most cost-effective location that we could determine. It's near the current modular classrooms on the campus. So there's minimal site work and minimal disruption that's required to place a portable classroom there. And the required infrastructure like electricity and phone wires and all of those kinds of things are already in place. So this is Marin, and Dawn is going to be my Vanna tonight. So this is where we're looking at placing the portable classroom at Marin. Again, it's the most cost-effective location. It's near the current, it's actually between the current modular classrooms. Again, minimal site work, minimal disruption. The required infrastructure is already present. And when Dawn and staff looked at all of the other options on the campus would require major site work. I mean, very major expensive site work.
It's pretty clear from here, if I could just comment quickly. It's pretty clear from here that there's really nowhere else you could put it, but it's worth noting also that in between those two, there's actually a little basketball court there in between, which, will the entire basketball court need to come down, or can one hoop remain, or is there a?
We can leave
Dawn,
one.
into the microphone.
Sorry. We can leave one hoop that's next to the room 24, but the other one will have to come down.
So that would face out into the play area so they could shoot hoops towards the fence?
It'll actually face the existing building, and it'll probably be pretty small, a pretty small key.
And pretty ineffective.
Yeah, the alternative was to put it in the middle of the playground or over by the kindergarten side, which...
So kind of when we're on this, what's the cost going to be? We're talking about reduced cost, but could you give us the cost again? The annual cost?
We priced the annual cost is about $350 per portable leasing. I'm sorry, to lease a month.
Per month?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Ocean View. And all the way on your right is what we're looking at for the location of this portable building. It's the same considerations that I've mentioned already. Most cost-effective location, near current modular classrooms, minimal site work and disruptions, the required infrastructure is already present. All the other options on that campus would require significant site work. It is going to affect, I have a second slide for that. Additional fencing will be added to improve security, and no parking will be allowed in what's that fire lane and where there's parking back by those portables. That parking won't be allowed anymore.
So could you go back
Yes,
to the
sure.
drawing?
Sure.
Where does
So-
the fire lane run on there? I'm sorry, Alan.
No.
Maybe that's what you were about to ask, right? Where's the,
runs along here.
okay.
So that's in the back of the building, the front of the building?
That's in the back. So that side there is the creek.
Yeah, so it blocks the,
No,
it doesn't block the fire.
No, it's not
lane.
gonna
Yeah,
block the
'cause it
lane.
can't.
Don, into the microphone, please.
Does not block the fire lane.
That would not be good.
No.
Does it affect delivery to the kitchens and things like that?
No.
Okay.
But there will be some lost parking?
There'll be lost parking in the very back where about 10 spaces in the back.
So if that spot is empty now, it's just going to be plopped down on an empty.
Yes.
So we have a communication plan regarding this work. I've been working with Jackie and Dawn on developing frequently asked questions regarding all of the facilities work that's planned this summer. And we are close to finalizing them. And once I have approval, we will post them on the district website. We'll send them to all the E-trees. They'll be on the Facebook page. We'll provide them to the patch. We'll publish them in the next edition of the district newsletter. And then we have already done this for affected neighbors for McGregor and the middle school, but we will also do it for the affected other sites. We will do a U.S. mailing to the affected neighbors of the schools.
Could I get clarification?
Sure.
So most of this is going to be done after the portables are already put in, right? Because they're going to be put in during the summer, right?
The communication plan is hopefully going to be done this week. We're going to send these out to folks to give them alert. Here's what to expect. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's not going to happen. Here's what you can expect. Here's the contact.
Good.
If you have questions, here's how we're mitigating this noise. Here's how we're mitigating the dust, whatever it is.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alan?
So this will affect the recreation programs at sites, particularly Marin School, I believe, we're so tight already. Are there any plans to adjust the physical education programs that will be more appropriate for a tighter site with less space for kids' activities?
Staff will be using their creativity to design appropriate activities for the space that's available.
And this might only be for 2 or 3 years if we get the money to do the
It's a temporary fix until such time as we can rebuild Marin and rebuild Ocean View,
So hopefully there's daylight in sight. Thank you.
hopefully.
I guess the other possibility is enrollment could decline, in which case we would no longer need them. That's another,
That would be another way to solve it.
which isn't all, it's not a good thing for districts in general, but at least in this situation.
That's not what's projected.
It's kind of
It's not
contrary to the
projected,
trends.
All right, okay.
It's been very
And-
difficult to project in Albany what's going to
Good
happen
point, though, good
to
point.
enrollment.
And as your enrollment person, it is very difficult to project. And I lose sleep over it every summer, over do we need this classroom or not? Are we going to have to lay off a teacher or not? And I don't have any control over who enrolls in our district, but it's that projection and making sure that they're placed at the right school and all those things. So
We're very sympathetic. We've seen cycles of these statistical projections which do not match at all what comes to be, so.
yeah.
Other
That really concludes our
Okay.
report about the elementary portable classrooms.
questions? Let's open it up to the audience. Are there questions or comments about this? Please come on up to the microphone.
Hello, my name is Adrienne Cabanatuan. I'm a parent of an outgoing fifth grader at Cornell, and I just would hate to see this get glossed over about what Board Member Maris is talking about in terms of the space. And it seems to me that it's kind of put a little bit more of a burden onto the teachers to say that staff is going to be creative. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are in terms of assisting that staff, because it's not just the PE program and the physical education program, it is the recess time where you have more bodies out there and less space for them to behave in and behave appropriately. And, you know, I've seen the change in my own child who's gone from kindergarten through fifth grade, and those fifth graders are huge. So, you know, to put them all out on a yard and eliminate more space and just sort of say, we're gonna be creative, just doesn't seem to me to be a good enough response. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what your plans are for that.
Are there any plans at this stage? It may be a little early. I don't know if there's anything that,
Well, I certainly apologize if I
said.
sounded like I was being glib about that, but it's a very difficult position that we're in. We have to serve our kids. We have to have classroom space for them, and we have small footprints of elementary schools. And I don't have a great answer, but we will certainly provide whatever support we can to help staff adjust as best we can with the tight facilities that we have.
it's, Paul, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, just to echo what Dr. Brown said, we are concerned about it, but we did have a packed board meeting here a few months ago telling us that there was a crisis in terms of class size, and the absolute only way to get the class sizes down was to put in more classrooms. So, we are kind of between a rock and a hard place here.
I get that, but you're trading off one good for another good, right? So somehow there has to be some kind of support for the students that are there, because these are young children, and the young children need that space.
Well, we'd love to hear suggestions.
Well, I can offer you a number of suggestions. I'm not going to stand here, in front of this, body and spout them off. But what I will say is that I would hate to see the board respond in a way that is glossing over what is an important issue.
No, seriously, if you have good ideas,
I'm
please,
happy to
please
email
send
them to you.
us. Yes.
I'm happy to email them to you.
I have a question, first of all, and it has to do with what it defines what the infrastructure is at a site. Because one of our portables, where you're putting another one now, my name is Jim Brantley, I teach at Cornell Elementary. There is no water in the portable that we call room 29. Is that supposed to be part of an infrastructure for any classroom, that they have water there?
It depends on the classroom and the location. The new one that's going in won't have water either.
I would want that to be considered in terms of what's equitable for all students. If you're having a classroom with no water and the access to water, the drinking fountains are not anywhere nearby there either. These children are at definitely at not an equal standing with the rest of the students at Cornell.
Can we be sure that there are water coolers in those rooms, that there's drinking water available in those rooms?
We'll come up with a plan.
Yeah, I'll have to look into where the actual water, I'm not sure if there are any in the portables that are across from, but I believe there are, so there may be a way to get a water line out there.
Even without a line, a cooler, is it mainly drinking water or hand washing? What are the concerns with water? Both?
Both.
So
we do have hand sanitizers. They are there. But I think primarily drinking water, but
right.
Water for washing up is important as well.
Right.
Right, art
Okay.
and science projects.
Yeah, sure.
Beyond that question, I do have another comment I would like to make if the board is open to that. You're asking for solutions to this problem. I will give you one. For the past 3 years, the Cornell kindergarten team has been advocating a return to its traditional kindergarten program in which 2 teachers share a classroom with an AM group and a PM group. Despite our efforts to reverse a decision that not one of us supported, our words have fallen on deaf ears. We have repeatedly been told no. That answer is not acceptable to us. To refresh your memory on why, here are a few cogent points. Fundamentally, we feel our AM-PM model is more developmentally appropriate. Our experience is that the lengthened day has not added instructional minutes, but in fact reduced it because of the behavioral problems that arise when children are pushed beyond their limits. More time is now spent managing tired children than teaching them. More time is now spent going to SST meetings and other interventions trying to get these children back on track. This problem is certainly compounded when there's only one teacher in the classroom. We have witnessed not just an escalation in behaviors that limit education, but also in the behaviors that cause more teacher time outside the classroom. When two teachers are in the classroom, these behaviors were better managed earlier on, and children were able to acquire the necessary social skills that are so central to kindergarten experience. This applies to the daily needs of kindergarten as well. Kids who need help going to the bathroom, kids who need to have an owie fixed, kids who have problems where a second teacher there could handle this in a way that did not interrupt the instructional minutes for the rest of the class. Also, if you consider the new increased demands of the Common Core, we feel it's even more important now that these children get the increased instructional minutes a second teacher in the classroom would provide. So what does this have to do with our conversation tonight? The big issue here has to do with space at Cornell. We have been advocating for the AM-PM kindergarten that, like that, gives you two classrooms. It means instead of adding a portable, you take away a portable. Instead of decreasing playground space, you increase it. This is what we think really should be done at Cornell. We've been advocating this, I said, for 3 years. No one seems to take this seriously. We're not going to take no for an answer for this, and I'm going to now refer you to a local hero in the Albany community. I don't know if you're familiar with where many of our kids enjoy playing soccer, at Fielding Field. Fielding Field is named after Doug Fielding. It was named after him because he repeatedly went to an unlistening University of California who said, no, you may not have that land, no, you may not have that land. And he says, fine, I'm going to keep coming until you say yes. I'm sort of feeling the same way as Doug Fielding right now. I want to keep coming to this board until I hear yes to our plan to go back to the traditional way that kindergarten has been delivered at Cornell Elementary. I think you'll find, as I said, you get rid of a need for a portable, you take one away, it's a win-win situation. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Someone else wanted to speak?
Other people who would like to speak? Yes, Ms. Reimuller.
I'm Liz Reimuller. I teach 3rd grade, and I'm also a parent of a high schooler, and I've taught at Marin for, I think, about 18 years. And I really second Jim's sentiments. That sounds like a great plan. But I wanted to talk about if these portables are going down on our site this summer, which looks like they are. And you talked about how we are being creative. I would like to say that one of the things that we've talked about is staggering our recesses and our lunches. Now that sounds like a good option, but we need support from the board, and perhaps, and this is me speaking on my own here, thinking about the conflicts that were discussed, the issues that were discussed tonight. So I haven't had this discussion with my staff. We've had the discussion about staggered lunches and staggered recesses. The problem that it presents for us, though, is that our prep schedule is way too tight to stagger. If we stagger, we release the yard a little bit, but our prep schedule is so tight, and we don't have enough places, especially with PE, but with all prep, especially 4-5 prep, to to move about the schedule. So you could support, if we do indeed have to have the onerous portables that take up our yard, in order to reduce our class size, which I know is the goal that you're working for, and I really appreciate that because we did communicate that last year, and the parents did as well, that you could support us by providing more prep, perhaps, or like if we could have more PE service, then we could stagger more easily and take the pressure off the yard. And it's a very, very tricky puzzle to create. I understand that, but that is one way that you could help, is by looking to that prep schedule and increasing support there so that we can stagger the children on the yard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Dunnigan, Marin, and also ATA. Just very quickly, I want to follow up with what Jim was saying. He has brought this time and again to our labor relations meetings, and he has been completely dismissed. And I think he has an incredibly valid concern. There are districts in the Bay Area that are doing this. There are districts that have different models at different sites. Research has shown that, a longer day is not necessarily a better day for children of that age. They would benefit hugely from having the 2 teachers in the classroom and the lower teacher to student ratio. And again, this is done in different districts in the Bay Area, so it would not, it's clearly not illegal against educational code or anything like that. Along that line too, the Children's Center teachers have been approaching the district with the same issue for TK at the Children's Center. And they've come up, they've suggested the same model, being able to do a staggered TK. I'm not sorry, it's not staggered TK, but an AM PM model. And that would open up a classroom, because it's looking now like next year there will be 3 TKs. Is that right, Marcia?
That is correct.
And, we've looked into educational code, and we've been looking at this, and it's legal. And so when the issues of doing this at the kindergarten have been brought to the district, they've been outright dismissed. I hear that's been the case also with the Children's Center, and being told that they can't do it, when in actuality, I guess we're trying to understand, is it we can't do it or we won't do it? Because from everything we can find, we can legally do it. The TK, as long as they're having their 36,000 minutes of, their 36,000 instructional minutes, then it's fine. And again, that's just bringing in a slightly different model within the district that's being done. And you're also giving those children the 2-to-1 teacher to student ratio, or increasing it, doubling it, what I'm trying to say here. So I don't envy anything you guys are trying to do. I understand we are begging for lower class sizes. At the same time, we are impacted, and there's not an ideal situation in the near future. And so that's where we're really trying to say, but we can be flexible. And teachers, as you heard Jim say, are more than willing to be flexible. And this could work at the Children's Center. I believe it was even supported by Susan. Is that correct, Jamie? So their director even, supports it. So we hope you'll either talk to us, because we've been entirely left out of the discussion again. We've been glad to be a part of this discussion at any time and to throw out ideas. I would love to hear some of your suggestions. So if you're willing to have that conversation, we're certainly willing to engage in it with you, because there are ideas out there.
Carrie,
Thanks.
how do the Marin teachers feel about AM, PM kindergarten on that campus?
You know what? I'm not sure. I think on one hand, they like the staggered reading. It helped a little bit having some aid support this year. Without that, it was very difficult. I think it's mixed. I think in one sense, they look at our situation with being so impacted, and they recognize that for the space issue, it would make more sense to go back to AM/PM. They like having their own classrooms, you know, I mean, you kind of have a little bit more freedom to do that. They appreciated having the support from the teachers in the past. So I don't want to totally speak for them right now. I'd have to go back and really have that discussion, so, yeah, sure.
I just wanted to say very briefly, I really wanted to attest to what Jim said in the beginning about the level of student needs increasing, and that has definitely been happening, I know, at Marin. It is intense, the number of 504s and IEPs and student needs that we've been seeing, and I don't have a causal reason for it, but it is definitely increased, and I think that it has to do with being able to have enough time with the kids to manage them, especially in the early grades. Thank you.
Thanks. And just a reminder, we want to hear from everybody, but I'm going to encourage people to be brief if possible because we are running a little bit behind. Thank you.
It's very brief. I'm a Cornell parent. I'm a Cornell parent, and I have a third grader and a kindergartner. And
we were planning to talk about a different agenda item.
Right.
But we feel so passionately about what Mr. Brantley brought up that we wanted to come in. And we both have children who experienced pre and post. So we're your little randomized experiment here with how it's going. So.
Yeah, and I was just going to say I strongly support what Mr. Brownlee was saying, having had a kid experience both models.
And I would say there was a noticeable difference for my children. They have very similar temperaments, and it was very challenging for the second child. The experience was very, very different. Same teacher, amazing teacher, but very disruptive, very loud. He was hit and kicked by a child. It was very challenging for the teacher to keep control of. Very similar class composition and very different ability to keep control in the classroom.
Thank you. Which reminds me of a... This reminds me of a quick question I had with regard to aid support in the fall. Is the current plan was to reduce class size and then discontinue the aid support.
That's correct.
As long as we got it down to
Correct.
24 and under, 24 to 1.
Correct.
And lower. So
that's my understanding that the action that the board took.
Right.
I'm currently filling transitional kindergarten and kindergarten at 20 to 1. And first through third at 23 to 1.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of forgot. Just real quickly, again, we've been told that it can't be done for the TK to have the AM/PM, also the kindergarten. So we're just requesting, again, whether this was a willingness or a can, and if it can indeed not be done, can you please provide us with why that's the case as far as the legal reasons or what's going on there? Because we're just trying to understand the district reasoning for this, if it's just purely a choice. And just kind of backing that up, I'm under the understanding too that was the case with the aides, but it would be wonderful if you'd reconsider, even 24 students is a lot of kids, and aid support next year would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I encourage you to bring that up when we have our budget discussion, because that's really what controls whether we can or do it.
Yeah, I think we'll see later this evening that we're still running a deficit. We are spending more money than we're taking in, so we have to be cautious. But I totally hear you.
We would need less portables if we did AM/PM at Cornell and TK.
Hi, my name is Sarah Whitmer, and I actually have two boys who attended Marin School, and when I saw your map and that the portable was going to take away the basketball court, I about had because, if kids need a place to play and get out that energy, you take away the one organized thing that can happen there. And I'm not sure how much of it happens during the school day, but it certainly happens a lot in after school and weekend hours, and it's just a shame to see that go away.
Thank you. All right. I think we need to move on at this point. So thank you for that report. So that completes our staff reports, and we're going to move on to persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda. Is there anyone here to speak about something that is not on our agenda tonight? Please come on up. Yeah, thank you. And as just for informational purposes, to let everyone know, the board can't discuss the items that are not on the agenda because they weren't agendized. We're always eager to hear from people, and we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Lisa Warren. I'm the reading specialist at Cornell. And I'm here to advocate for more administrative support staff at our school. As Marcia mentioned, in recent years, our enrollment has swelled, putting many more demands on our support team. If any other institution or company's client base increased from 450 to 600, increases in personnel to serve those clients would also increase. Moreover, our instructional staff has nearly doubled in the last 10 years, especially with the addition of the special day class and the paraeducators that come with it. In all that time, our support staff in the office has stayed the same in terms of time. Even without the added population, the district documentation requirements have increased, and with it, the volume of work has increased all on its own. Just one example of that is the overwhelming amount of paperwork involved with parent volunteers and drivers. Another has been alluded to, the amount of IEPs and 504 plans have radically increased. In my 27 years at Cornell, I can say unequivocally that the current office staff that we have has been the most organized and efficient. Beyond. And yet, they felt strongly enough that they could not do their jobs to the best of their ability this year, and it is our great loss that they have resigned. Because of this, we are losing a hugely competent office team with a combined experience of 21 years of Cornell. And this could have been preventable if our request for 20 to 40% more clerical staff or the addition of a vice principal was fulfilled. When I attempted to interview our current secretary about the scope of the present job, it was clear that besides the fact that neither one of us had 5 hours to devote to creating such a list, it would have included so many facets that are not listed in the job description. Which brings me to a huge point. We know that in our small district, secretaries have become the school nurses, but they are now having to become those who deal with the 10 to 15 disciplinary issues every day. Those students' needs are not being met, largely because our principal has called off her duties at the school. And although she's been exemplary, being in the schoolyard, the cafeteria, and available to meet with parents, as an ideal leader should, and we are grateful she's been able to do that, it has prevented her from being present and giving sufficient attention to discipline. This situation has pulled our secretarial team into areas that aren't part of their job description and for which they are not trained for, but they handled admirably. In most Bay Area districts, when an elementary school reaches 500 enrollment, an assistant principal is hired. Just because we're a small district, the need is not less. In fact, because of our lean district office staff, most of the work that could ordinarily be accomplished there is often given to our principal.
Sorry about that. Please finish.
Thank you. Thank you. Whether this extra support comes in the form of an assistant principal or a 40% position for more administrative help, it would certainly let our lifeblood flow more efficiently so that we can attend to our most important job, teaching and supporting students. Our students are not adequately supported. I'm sorry. Read that already. I'm almost at the end. Our district's mission statement is that we are committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment. We feel that at Cornell, we have tried but not always succeeded here because we are lacking the structure to do that. Meeting every student's needs does not take place solely in the classroom. We are desperate for more support in this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Adams, and I'm president of CSEA. As the bargaining unit that represents the administrative assistants in the schools, I can attest that it's not just at Cornell that we are feeling this incredible crush of new duties, larger populations, and just general near chaos at times because not enough people are there to deal with the work that needs to be done. when an entire office staff resigns, that's kind of a bad, kind of a bad sign. When a person is so distracted by the constant interruptions and the need to supervise students who have been sent out of class, and the little crises that come up every day, that she cannot perform her other duties to the extent that she feels she needs to work beyond her paid hours. That's not right. And in all of our schools, I think this is the case with our clerical workers. Our offices, I think the teachers they're nodding their heads, they see our secretaries, they appreciate them, we know that we're appreciated, but we also know that it's getting to a very difficult point. And so I just wish to echo what's been said and appeal to the board. I know we have a budget. I understand that in many cases we prefer to spend that budget on instructional, direct instruction, but when the support team can't support the team, at some point we're going to start losing ground. And I think we're getting there, if not already there. And so I'm just bringing that to your attention. At the high school, next year we're bringing on the McGregor students, but the district is proposing to do that without adding any additional clerical help. They've laid off the person who was doing it this year. So that's just another example of the direction we're going, which is the opposite. Each site has its staff that has not increased and in fact has decreased as the population has grown. So I think that all of these points that I'm making may suggest to you that some measures need to be taken to remedy this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak? Yes, come on up.
But I'll be longer this time. Hi, my name's Andrea Venezia, and I'm a parent of a first grader and a third grader at Cornell. I speak from a different vantage point. I'm an education researcher, and I'm a professor at Sacramento State in public policy, and I teach in the EDD program, the Education Doctoral Program, and in that capacity, I teach about student support services. So for me, the worlds are colliding right now when I see this interesting meeting where we're talking about Carol Dweck and mindset issues and all these wonderful things we'd love to see pushed down into our elementary schools, yet at the same time, they're being gutted in these really essential ways. And Mr. Brantley bringing up the behavioral problems that we see. I think it's really time to take what everyone's saying about the supports the schools need to make a change, and we need your help to do that. I've been so impressed with our administrative staff at Cornell, and the parents are devastated at this change. They manage, I look around, I do research in states around the country for the past 20 years, plus I've never seen a school this size as Cornell with this lack of an infrastructure, yet it does so well, and I think it does so well because people do it on their backs, and that's not a sustainable model, and we can't hope to recruit another excellent principal, excellent office staff, and keep them for years with the current climate and what they do for us. So I would like to push for a sustainable model and an infrastructure for our schools to be able to continue to do what we do. Hopefully, maybe improve, although I don't think we really need to, fortunately. But I do research in underserved schools, and so my vantage point is that. And so to see a very advantaged school that I'm grateful for not even meet what I see in schools that are severely struggling has been astonishing to me. So thank you.
My name's Jen Gritman, and I have a 5th grade son at Cornell, and I'm also a 4th grade teacher there. I prepared something to read, but I'm actually not going to because Lisa said basically the exact same thing so eloquently, and I'm a crier, so if I try to read mine, I'll lose it. But I just wanted to officially be on the record that I wholeheartedly agree with everything that's been said, and it's really, really a loss for us that Christine and Lori are leaving. And it's because they're not given the same support that they find the strength to give to us, despite their lack of resources. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Neil Ramos. I'm a parent of a kindergartner and a first grader at Cornell, and I just wanted to echo everything that has been said tonight. My first grader is one of the kids who needs a little bit of extra discipline sometimes and a little bit of extra direction, and in the way that I see kindergarten, first grade, and the first few grades of school, the children are learning how to become responsible citizens, and they should not be in class, disrupting class. If they need to be moved to another secondary, tertiary situation where they need to be talked to, where they need to learn something, and the infrastructure of not having support staff for the principal, a vice principal, or other staff, staffing levels in the front office to support this is something that is near and dear to me, in that my child is at school much of the day, and they need as much direction as possible from their educators, as well as other channels there in the school system, and specifically from my frame of reference at Cornell. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, you're tired of seeing me. I just wanted to add something, and Jim, you can correct me right now if I'm wrong, but a couple of months ago at one of our labor relations meetings, the whole issue of Cornell losing their office staff was brought up. And at the time, I believe one of your secretaries was willing to stay at a reduced time, and this was outright dismissed, you know, and this would have been, I've tried to kind of go back and figure out the timeline. I believe this would have been at a time when our superintendent knew that Wendy was also leaving. And I think it is unconscionable to leave a school without any experienced people in their office, between having a principal who knows what's going on and the administrative staff, which are absolutely invaluable to running our school and to knowing how things function. I think it was incredible that this one secretary, though completely frustrated, was willing to stay to try to make sure that the site had what they needed and could train the new people coming in, and that it was so quickly dismissed and we weren't even allowed to have a real discussion about it. I think, once again, it's just a reflection of what things have been like for a number of years now.
Again, I'm Jessica Cross, a Cornell parent. I just wanted to add my support. Every time I'm in the office, I can't think of a time I've been the only interruption of Lori and Christine's work. They have kids crying or trying to hand in forms, or other parents there every single time. And I can't imagine how any paperwork happens, how any of the rest of it happens. When I was telling someone we lost our principal, they said, well, do you think that they're going to promote from within? I said, well, what do you think? We have an assistant principal? We don't. The secretaries do that work. And I think it's easy to see administration as a place where you can cut, because it's not adding class size, but at a certain point it really does hurt our children's education. Thank you.
And if we could say, because of the time, can this be the last comment on this particular topic? Although if there are comments on other topics that are not on the agenda, that are not this one, then please come up. But I think message received is what I would say, and I think the board might echo that.
Okay, so I'm gonna speak for 60 seconds and yield my 2 minutes to the team here.
That would be fine.
Okay. So my name is Adrienne Cabanatuan, as I've said before. I have been the PTA president for Cornell for the last 2 years and served on the board there for 4 years now. And I can tell you that the office staff is invaluable to our ability to raise funds to support these students and to support the teachers and to support this district. There is no way that we could do what we do if we didn't have the support of these individuals. They not only help us navigate all the things that are going on in the school, but they also support our children and the events that we have. They support all the things that the PTA does, and that's in their off time. Not that they have much of it, but that's in their off time. So I would wholeheartedly support everything that's been said. I think to lose the office staff at Cornell is heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking to think that the children who have known these people and have relied on these people for the number of years that they've been at the school will not have them when they go back in the fall. And I think I work in human resources. I think it's just terrible that we can't retain them and that we can't find some way of retaining this team.
Hi everyone, we're the outgoing team. I'm Christine Adams. I'm also a Cornell parent for the last 10 years, and I've been at Cornell for 7 years and 2 years as secretary.
I'm Lori Safe. My daughters both went through Cornell, and now they're at middle school and high school, and I've worked 7 years in the office, I think.
And we're devastated to have to leave, but we do have to leave. So I'm sorry.
We're so touched by all these kind words tonight, so thank you.
And we're committed, dedicated employees, and if there was any way for us to stay and make this work, we would. But we've been drowning and yelling for help for a long time. So if we can't do it, I don't know. I can't imagine the poor people coming in behind us that we are frantically trying to train on our own dime to accomplish anywhere near what we, after 7 years each, have been able to get up to speed on. They're already fully in a panic, and without a principal who can support them, Cornell's in crisis, and we're not alone. I mean, I speak for Ocean View and Marin as well. I've had numerous meetings with their secretarial staff, and we're all at breaking point. The tipping point has been reached, and there's no way back from that. So I have a bit of hard data. I don't have much time, but we took a bit of a tally just over like a 2-week period when we possibly could. And just in the course of that, we found that on top of our 8 hours of paperwork that we're meant to be accomplishing every single day, we had an average of, this is just me, not even Lori, so add another half, 225 interruptions. 225, and that was nursing issues, phone calls, emails, 50 parent interactions a day, 50 staff interactions a day, 35 student interactions, 15 other ones, and discipline at least 10 a day, and those are action items, every one. And the discipline, well, our poor beleaguered principal wasn't around for half of that, so you're having your classified staff deal with major discipline issues every day, each of which requires immediate drop everything support, from long minutes of mediation and separation and individual conversation. I mean, it's unbelievable. Way beyond our pay grade, sorry. And we're doing it all to the best of our abilities and beyond our daily hours as well. I will say it's impossible to get all that done in 8 hours. We love our school. And we love this district, so I'm really sorry. I feel like I've failed you, but I can't do this anymore.
I just want to add real fast. It was true, the woman that said, it was me that said I would do it. I would stay on halftime. So that was true.
One thing that we haven't had, I think, is we haven't had in some time a report on classified support at the sites, and it may be time, if I have the support of my fellow board members, to look into some kind of report to the board on how the sites are supported by classified staff.
Yeah.
I think that has to be done in the context of what we have said that we need to do all along, which is to look at the cuts that were made in the last 3 years. We have a huge list of them, and how we, what we did in the last 2 years to take back some of those cuts and to increase those positions. But, you know, it's very important. I'm very sympathetic to everything that I hear, but part of the job of the board is to listen to stakeholders and to prioritize what is going to help the district overall. So we can't just react. We have to listen, and then we have to look at the list. So, I mean, we can have a report like that, but I think it has to be in the larger context of understanding. We have lists of things that we had to cut, things that we had to restore, reasons why we restored certain things, tiers of priorities, so it has to be in that context.
I'd second what Pat says. We had a board goal for this last year of setting our priorities for how we would spend money when we got any, and we've never done that. And I think we're going to hear a budget report tonight that will tell us we don't even have enough money to break even. So it's not like we have new money coming in. The state is not supporting us the way they should be. I think we really need to have not just a staff report, we need to have a board conversation. We need to dedicate an entire meeting to talking about budget priorities, spending priorities. We want to support, we absolutely, you know, it's breaking my heart to hear these stories. We want to support people. You know, every time we talk about class size or not having enough for this or not having enough for that, somebody steps up and says, well, you've got too much administration, cut the administration. Well, I think you know that's not true. We don't have too much administration. We don't have too much administrative help. We don't have enough. But we don't have enough anything. So we want to support everything, but we have to pay for it. I think it's going to take at least one full board conversation, if not more than one, to sort this out as best as we can.
All right, so.
And President Knight,
Yes.
the LCAP that's being presented tonight does discuss current staffing levels at the school sites,
Okay.
clerical.
Thank you. So then we'll look into that. What I'm hearing from my fellow board members is a board conversation on priorities given the funding levels we're going to hear about soon as a top priority. All right, thank you.
I'd just like to thank everybody for speaking. I have a tendency to tear up as well.
Thank you, everyone. All right, we really have to move on this evening, and I hope people will stay to see what we really are up against, because the next item is the budget report this evening. I'm going to open the public hearing for the budget report, and we'll leave the public hearing open during the report and until the end of it. Okay.
I think there was another subject.
Have I missed something? Oh, was it?
Do you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a public comment on a different topic? If there is, please. I mean, I'm not. This is your opportunity.
He says he's going to wait.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Linda Stromberg, and my child is graduating from this district in just a few days. But I think that what I've been hearing is that you have a lot of well-meaning people with legitimate problems. And Paul, you certainly have addressed, you know, your concerns. And frankly, I'm not necessarily.
Can you talk into the microphone, please? Sorry.
I wouldn't necessarily want to be you either, but you have a lot of well-meaning people with real problems, and clearly we need more communication. I mean, clearly you're going to have to rank things, but we've got to talk more. We're not just Cornell School or Marin School or Albany High School. We're a district, and we have district-wide problems and district-wide priorities. And I would encourage you to have more education on sites, more transparency of decisions, because it sounds like some people don't feel they're listened to. You don't want that. I know that. I know some of you. You don't want that. They certainly don't want that. So I would say what I've heard tonight is a lot of well-meaning people feeling they've given all they can give, and maybe you're feeling the same way, but we have to learn to talk better, I think is the thing. And my issue will be addressed another night, but it was along the same line. You know, you only have so much you can give before it's just Groundhog Day. You're just repeating the same stuff over and over again, and you don't move forward. We don't move forward. So that's just my comment.
Thank you.
By the way, Linda, I don't think you were here when I was recruiting for more grad night volunteers. Okay, now it's over. So if you want to volunteer for grad night, talk to Linda. Come join me at 2 a.m. in the morning at Albany Bowl. We'll have a good time.
All right, we are now at the budget report.
Thank you, Board President Knight, Vice President Maris, members of the board. My name is Alan Gard. I'm the Chief Business Official for the Albany Unified School District, and I'm going to present the 2014-15 budget.
And welcome, Alan. I believe this is your first presentation here, so thank you.
It is. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So first, one of the things we're going to talk about is the governor's May revise. It's his revised proposal for the state budget for next year. And then we'll talk about how that impacts our budget for next year, and then look at next steps. So some good news for the state is that the state is projecting to receive $2.4 billion in more money. Some bad news is that the schools are not going to receive any of that new money because the governor has allocated that to state Medi-Cal program and the creation of a rainy day reserve fund. Some other good news is that the governor has proposed a plan to clear up the CalPERS, CalSTRS unfunded liabilities. More bad news is that most of the way to clear up the unfunded liabilities is to have the school districts pay for those liabilities. So CalPERS is the California Public Employees Retirement System. And so the governor's plan is to have this chart up here. We are currently paying 11.44% for every person who's in CalPERS, which is mostly our classified staff. However, up until 2020-21, that percentage is going to grow to 20.4%. So it's almost double. So for CalSTRS, which is the California State Teachers Retirement System, the employers' rates have not changed until since 1986, as well as the employees' rates for contributions have not changed since 1972. Currently, you can see at the top chart, the school districts are paying 8.25% for our certificated staff that are in CalSTRS. And as well as employees are paying 8%, and then the state is contributing 3%. So the governor's plan is to increase all of our rates. The pre-2013, which is members who have been in CalSTRS prior to 2013, the governor's plan is to increase their rates up to 10.25%. And the post-employees who are post-2013, which are members who started into CalPERS after 2013, that their rates would increase to 9.21%. And then the state would go up to 6.33%.
And districts.
And so now in the district, so the district, the governor's plan is to increase it from 8.25 to 19.1%, which is an increase of 150%, or just about. So those are going to have some significant impacts into our budget for this coming year. But first, I kind of wanted, because it's my first presentation to you, I wanted to, remind you of some of the basics regarding budgets. So first, it is a financial projection based on current assumptions, and the state requires that school districts present 4 budgets to school districts. First is the adopted budget that I'm doing now, which is a plan for the new year. The first interim report, which is, after enrollment has finalized, staffing has finalized, what does our budget look like? The second interim report, which is after the governor proposes his state plan for the following year. It's, well, how does our finances look not only in the current year but in the out years? And then the unaudited actuals, which is close out like a final budget of the actuals for the year. So some of the factors that go into budgets, it's mainly driven by enrollment and attendance, because that's mainly how we receive our funds from the state. Then I'll talk about the LCFF, which is new for 2013, and talk about some of the the issues related to that for Albany Unified, and then talk about the expenditures. So because we're a school district, because we're in the business of education, it requires people to do that work, and so that's why 92% of our budget is people, and it's normal that that school districts have that large of a budget for. So this is a chart showing enrollment since 2000, and as you can see, it has been growing, and we're projecting it to grow by about 75 students for this coming year. One of the key things with enrollment is this is how we have to staff, and this is also drives our facility needs, which we talked about today. However, the state gives us money based on attendance. And so attendance, we do have pretty good attendance. We have about 96.5%, which is a historical average for Albany Unified, which is very good. And this is how we receive the money from the state. It's based on these numbers. So I'll talk about LCFF. So this is the biggest change in how schools are funded in the past 40 years. However, because it's so brand new, it's assumed that there are going to be some revisions worked out year over year. However, just because the state changed the funding model, it's not changing the overall funding that the state is providing. And so the latest information that we have is as of 2011-12, we're 49th in the nation. And one of the intricacies of LCFF is the state didn't have enough money to fully fund it, so they developed this hopeful 8-year transition plan that's not in statute. It's just their goal, basically, because they would have needed $17 billion to actually fund it. And LCFF, it's geared to try to provide more equity in funding across the state, and as well as provide a focus on accountability for student achievement, which is the LCAP, which you'll hear about after. This is an aggregate chart of how LCFF works. We're funded based on these dollar amounts by grade span. So you could see that for all of our transitional kindergarten to 3rd grade students, we will get $7,740 per attendance. And then for 9 through 12, we would get $8,712. What the state's talking about as far as providing equity and funding is this supplemental and concentration grant. So for each low-income English learner and foster youth child, we would receive a additional support or additional funding to help those students. And so because throughout the district, we have 30% of our students as being labeled as being English learners, low income, or foster youth, then we receive 30% of the base grant. And so that's how it works out to be, $464 for K through 3. So by 2020-21, the state's goal is to give us $8,204 per K3 child, and then $9,235 per 912 or for high school. However, because it's a phase-in process, we're only receiving $6,870. Another way to look at the increase in funding that I put in quotes is because the state has mentioned LCFF is going to provide more money for schools. However, if we compare it to how the old system, the revenue limit system worked, we are actually losing money because of this system. And the reason for that is because we don't have a lot of low-income English learners or foster youth students, so the state isn't giving us for that. One of the key things I want to point out is this bottom chart, and it's showing the percentage growth over 2013-14. And so even though we'll receive 9.75% in more LCFF dollars, the personnel cost is growing by 14%. And that's incorporating the STRS and PERS increases that the state's talking about, as well as 7% increases in health and welfare, which is a historical average. We hope that because of Affordable Care Act that those spikes go down. However, we have to use the conservative numbers of historical average. And so even throughout the next 5 years to 2018-19, we'll receive 33% more in LCFF dollars. However, our personnel growth, or our personnel costs would be 35%. So we're still, we still have deficits year over year. And you'll see that more in a coming slide.
Alan, I just want to clarify, overall personnel cost, so can you clarify that bottom line? What is that adding?
Yes, so it's not adding the STRS, PERS, and health and welfare. What it's taking is just a projection of the total salaries, which are including step and column increases, the total statutory benefits such as Social Security, Medicare, and then increases in STRS and PERS, and then the increases in health and welfare. So it's taking those dollar amounts and comparing it. I'm sorry. And taking that.
Your computer.
So it's taking those dollar amounts compared to the dollar amount increases of LCFF.
Okay, and the percentage deficit, I missed the explanation of what that's a percentage of.
Okay, so the deficit is just pointing out that it's more than the increase in funding that we're receiving.
I see.
Yes.
So a 35% increase in personnel cost, and personnel cost is 90-something% of overall cost.
Yes.
So it would be 35% of 92%, something like that.
Correct, correct. So the point of this chart was to show that the funding is less than the growth in personnel costs. And when we look at a future slide, we'll show that that we need more revenue than expenses just to cover our structural deficits, so the deficits that are currently in the budget.
Okay, so now I think I've got it. Can I?
Sorry.
At the very top, it looks like the difference between, well, I guess it's not the difference between cost, it's and income, it's the difference between what we would have had in the old model and what we are getting in the new model. And that gap is closing. We're getting more each year from LCFF, assuming no new recession occurs. But the deficits are increasing. So even that rate of increase in funding doesn't cover what we're already projecting to spend.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the other thing it seems to be showing is that the old revenue method would give us more money than the new LCFF, and that's because we're one of the few schools that doesn't qualify for the extra income out of the LCFF.
Correct.
And what happens to Proposition 98? The LCFF just give the state a pass?
So with Proposition 98, all Proposition 98 is a minimum floor for what the state has to provide to schools. However, it's not driving how the pie to schools is funded. So LCFF is only a portion of that pie. It's a big portion of the pie, but it's still just a portion that the state provides to schools. Federal, state, and other local revenues. So for federal revenues, we're projecting flat. Other state revenues, the Common Core grant that we received was just a one-time grant. But I just wanted to point out that for local revenues, we have the parcel tax Measure I that's ending in June 2015. And so in the multi-year projections that you're going to see, the revenues have been removed. However, the expenditures are going to remain until decisions are made, or until hopefully the restoration of parcel tax Measure I. So for the expenditure side, just incorporating the step and column increases, the governor's proposal for STRS and PERS increases, as well as the historical 7% health and welfare increases, as well as we have plans for textbook adoptions, the current and future years, so that's incorporated into this multi-year projection. So this is a really big chart, and there's a lot of numbers. So one of the key takeaways is this next slide. This shows the restricted general fund. So the restricted general fund includes special education, all of our funding from federal grants, which incorporates about 10% of the funding that we receive, parcel taxes, and restricted routine maintenance. So just one of the key takeaways is that in the multi-year projection, we're assuming that the restricted funds are staying within its means. So it's staying within the funding that it's being provided.
But there's no reserve at the end of
Right, and so
2015.
And the reason for that is just to show that we're utilizing all of the restricted funds each year. This is another really big chart showing the combined general fund. So it's the restricted and the unrestricted general fund. And just one of the key takeaways I want to point out is row C, which shows that we do have a large structural deficit and that it's not sustainable. And the required multi-year projection from the state is the current and 2 subsequent years. So it's 2014-15, 15-16, and 16-17. And so it's possible that if changes in the budget are not made, then we would have to dip into Fund 17, which is a set aside by the board to help develop more career tech pathways.
So how is that increasing? We look at Fund 17 at the bottom of item E.
Yes, so Fund 17 I've incorporated as increasing because of the, there's a 912 career technical add-on that we're receiving from LCFF, and so those funds are being diverted to Fund 17 until there's a plan of how to utilize it.
And why Fund 17 in particular?
Fund 17 is a special reserve fund that boards have the ability to use, just so it's clear and set aside, and it's not kind of just jumbled into the general fund and law.
Right, it's part of the general fund, but we're just keeping track of it.
Yes.
So. But I guess I'm wondering if there are other funds for other purposes that could also be drawn on in this situation. In other words, Fund 17 isn't our only option.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
And so that'll be a future slide that I could show all the funds.
Then can I just ask one more follow-up on that one?
Yes.
This assumes the expiration of Measure I at the end of 2015, is that correct?
Correct. So the removal of Measure I begins in the 2015-16 budget.
And if we pass?
Then we would
the
look a lot
partial
better.
tax, then it'll look a lot better. Quite a bit better. It's about $1.5 million a year.
1.25.
Yeah.
Which still doesn't completely close the structural.
No, it doesn't.
Correct. Correct.
It'd still be red. It'd be less red.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So to go back to Fund 17, the source of revenue from that is from LCFF?
Correct. Embedded in LCFF is a 912 CTE, what they call add-on. And so it's a add-on that the state is giving us for this purpose.
But it's not a restricted.
Correct.
And recognizing that Alan's still fairly new, he may or may not be aware that we're planning to use that money to fund our current ROP sections at the high school.
Right.
And so it's about a wash because those ROP funding has gone away in LCFF.
Yeah.
And so this funding will replace that and allow us to continue to offer those 13 sections at the high school.
So it's really not a reserve sort of fund. The money is, we hope to
Correct.
spend it, yeah.
Correct.
And the we're in agreement with Contra Costa County for offering our ROP classes. And so the plan is that Contra Costa County would phase out as we phase in. And so that's why in Fund 17, it's not a $250,000 each year. So it's replacing what the Contra Costa County office is phasing out. And
But
so,
as you know, with Career Tech Ed, there's also large equipment and support costs
yes.
related to Career Tech Ed.
And for the folks at home, ROP stands for?
Regional Occupational Programs and Centers, ROPC.
Right. Part of our career technical ed program
Yes.
used to have a supplemental line of funding from the state that's been eliminated.
Yes. So this is a chart showing our unrestricted general fund, which is where most of the LCFF revenues go to, as well as kind of just what the board has more discretion about in utilizing. So as you can see that over the next 3 years, we're able to meet the required 3% reserve that the state requires. However, we're only ending with a balance of $56,000. So if we add on one more year, we're failing to meet the 3% reserve. And so to be financially stable in the long term and to also have the capacity to absorb any unforeseen expenses, such as the increase in PERS and STIRS, the unrestricted balance would need to be about $4 million just to kind of stay healthy and stay solvent.
And that gives us about a 10% reserve?
Yes. And that's, even though a 3% reserve is what's required by the state, FCMAT, which is the Fiscal Crisis Management Assistance Team, as well as CSBA, which is the California School Board Association, they both recognize that school districts of our size need something more about like 10% in order to absorb unforeseen costs.
So do you have a sense of passing Measure I, how that would impact that?
Yes. So with the passage of Measure I, if we take a look at just 2017-18, that negative 2.5 million would be a positive 1.25 million.
And we just barely make our 3%.
Correct.
Reserve requirement, yeah.
So we would still be short of the $4 million reserves
Sure.
and the 10%.
How about?
But there are certain other projections that he's made quite conservatively, which I asked about, which you would, which is wise, but you would have to consider, like the how health and welfare benefits increase, and
Yes.
also I asked him a bit about the. Right now, he's assuming that our STRS is going to be, that the district will have to give a certain amount, but it's still not completely clear from year to year, right? Do you want to?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry.
No, I asked you whether the governor's revision in May.
Oh, yes.
All right, said that he was going to want the district to give a certain percentage to STRS. However, that has not been
Correct.
completely agreed upon.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, sorry about that. So these projections are incorporating the governor's May revision of how STRS and PERS are increasing. However, there is current talks that the legislature and the governor, which happens all the time after the May revise is published, they're trying to work out a plan to try to reduce what school districts are paying initially, but then it'll be much larger increases in the out years.
I think that the main point is that Mr. Gard has had to make conservative, wisely for us, projections because he only has uncertain information to work with. So that's something to keep in mind as we're looking at these numbers.
Yes.
I hope it's not a conservative assumption the Measure I is going to pass.
We hope.
One of the other requirements for a budget is that the district has to show whether they're positive certification, which means, yes, we definitely can pay our bills in the current and 2 subsequent years, which I feel we can do. But the 2 other options are a qualified certification, which means that we may or may not be able to pay our bills, which requires more oversight by the County Office of Education. And then the negative certification means, yes, we definitely will not be able to pay our bills, which means then the state comes and provides that additional oversight. So yes, we can have a positive budget this year. However, as things change, if the assumptions remain true, then next year at this time, when we're adopting 2015-16, we'll not be able to have a positive certificate.
Right, and we should point out that by saying the state comes and provides oversight means they take over control. We no longer make the decisions about how we spend our money.
Correct.
Because they're concerned about fiscal management in the district, right?
Correct.
And fiscal solvency.
Correct.
Another conservative assumption is about contributions. And this doesn't include the school care.
That's a good point.
Correct. So this budget, because we're not able to incorporate donations that we have not received yet, it's not incorporating donations such as school care or the Albany Education Foundation or the Albany Music Fund that are so integral to all the programs that we provide.
And those make a huge difference, but I guess we should note that they don't make quite what was it, $1.2 million? I mean, if our deficit is 1.75, they're not making that much of a difference, as huge a difference as they make for us.
Correct.
So we still have more of a gap.
Yes.
And what's the status of the state returning some of the money that they've deferred or the deficits that we've accumulated over the years when the state didn't fully fund us?
Yes. So deficits, which are funds back in 2008 when everybody was in a crisis financially, the state, they basically said, okay, yes, we owe you this much money, however, we don't have that money, so when we get that money, we'll pay you back. However, that was under the old revenue limit model, and once LCFF was implemented, that was basically gone. They said there's no more IOU, we're not paying back schools because that was under an old method, and now we're all LCFF. So
is there a chance someone will sue them about that? I mean, it doesn't sound actually legal.
I think there are lawsuits going on with regard to the Proposition 98 guarantees with students in California schools as the defendants, as the plaintiffs, correct? Because they're being cheated of the money that they were promised by the state. for their education?
It was a large amount. Like for Albany Unified, the state took about $30 million over the past few years that they promised to pay back.
And we should be clear, there still is a deficit, it's just got a different name now, right? It's called the gap, isn't that the name for it, between what they want, we're supposed to get paid, which will be the 2020 figure,
yes.
2021, and what we're currently getting paid, so that's our gap.
That is
But
correct.
they're claiming they don't owe us that money.
That's just the gap.
So Board President Knight, this is a really small chart that shows all the other funds of the school district. But one of the things that I'm assuming you were pointing to is is our Fund 20, which is post-employment benefits, that has $1.2 million in reserves to cover our post-employment benefits for retirees. And that is really the only other fund that is possible to be drawn on in budget crisis.
We're aware of that.
And also for some of our facilities planning, new
Yes.
facilities?
So there are not a lot of funds that we have for facilities, even though there are a lot of facility difficulties throughout the district, because we're not receiving a lot of developer fees and activities going on in the community. And the state's not sure, we're not sure if the state is even going to provide a state facility bond to help fund schools that are that are needed. So, if they do, then we'll get in line and we'll hope that we can get a part of, can get some of that money to rebuild some of the schools, such as Marin and Ocean View. However, right now, that's not in the plans yet.
I thought there was some talk about it being about a bond for education facilities being put on the November ballot, but it has not been decided. It's
Correct.
talk.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk in
Yes.
Sacramento.
Yes.
I also received something from the city of San Francisco to support their resolution to modify Proposition 13 to close the gaps for commercial property taxes. So there's hope on a lot of fronts, but just a lot of talk so far. Yeah.
Thank you. Next steps. Sorry.
So just to talk about some next steps, the key thing is November 4th, Election Day. That will really drive what we talk about in future board meetings. But June 24th is when we have to adopt a LCAP and the budget, and then the state's going to adopt their budget by June 30th. And we'll come back to the board in December to look at our first interim budget that shows, exactly here's what our enrollment is, here's how our staffing is, and also here's how our health and welfare benefits and other things finalized.
What would trigger that August 12th presentation to the board if necessary?
Oh, sorry about that. So August 12th, because we built the budget based on the governor's May revise, if there is this dramatic shift from how the state actually adopts their budget, then we would come back on August 12th to show you, here's the changes to 2014-15.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. So I want to open it up both to board comments and to public comments. It's a public hearing still on the budget. Or questions for Mr. Gard.
I'd just like to thank Alan for a very clear and thorough presentation. That I think it bodes well for the future that you handle this so well, and we're looking forward to hearing more of your reports in the future.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So,
Pat.
So I have a question because people ask me to explain in simple terms what the budget is. So could we turn to, I think it's page 69 of the packet?
actual.
Or can you put that up on the, thank you, Jackie. Yeah, I think page 69 in the top right corner.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, can we go to, look at the table at the bottom, number 8? No, that's okay, thank you so much, Jackie. Right, thank you so much. Okay, so is this particular table summarizing one aspect of the funding or the budget overall? This particular table?
This summarizes the budget overall.
Okay, so that's what I thought, so this is what I would use to explain to people. So I would be able to explain to them, they often ask, so I could now explain about Fund 17 as being, as us putting in money from what used to be CTE, and also about the reserve percentage, which goes from 13.23 down to 9.27, down to 5.02. But with the assumption, with many of the assumptions that we discussed, but also the assumption that we don't have the Measure I monies anymore.
Correct.
Okay, so what about that bottom, the bottom column there called undesignated, unassigned reserve? Can you give me a simple way to explain that? I mean, I'm able to explain all the rest to people, but can you explain that to what that?
Yes.
Okay.
So the last line, the undesignated, unassigned reserve, is it's the difference between the ending fund balance, which is the second line at the top, and then adding the Fund 17 and all the other required allocations, so such as the revolving cash, the 3% reserve that's required. So incorporating all of that, the 3.6 million is what's left for other use. It's just not, it's unassigned, like it hasn't been designated for a specific purpose.
So it is part of the 13 point, for example, under 2014-15, that 3,600,000 or so is part of the 13.23%
Correct.
reserve. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ellen, is that 56,000 the right number? It doesn't, 5%?
The 5% reserve, the 5% reserve, it's a calculation from the state, so it's adding what's in Fund 17. So it's the Fund 17 of 797,000 plus the 56,000 is what gets, and plus the reserve for economic uncertainties, the 3% that's required. So those three numbers are what calculate the 5%.
It looks too small for 5% of our budget. That $56,000 is 5% of.
No,
2 million.
Sorry, it's the 1.26 million plus the 797,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong line. Yes, okay. So that's undesignated, unassigned reserve, which is, what is that last line then?
The 2.1 million?
No, 56,000.
Oh, the 56,000.
Yeah, what is undesignated, unassigned reserve? What does that mean?
So that's just what's left after we assign the ending balance to all the requirements, such as 3% reserve and cash. So that's what's left. And
so it's the reserve of the reserve.
Correct.
Okay.
But that does allow for the 3%.
It does
I mean,
incorporate.
the 3% is taken out before we get down to 56,000.
Yes.
Right, thanks.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that presentation. I know this comes back to us for approval at the next board meeting.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. I'm now going to ask the board if we could extend the meeting for 30 minutes.
Move to extend 30 minutes.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we've extended the meeting till 10 o'clock, and that's because we have another very important staff report, which I believe we're legally required to have by now, or at least we're legally required to approve the LCAP at the next board meeting, so we better have our report. So,
Plus, we do have a few action items.
and I thank you. We're going to close the public hearing for the budget, and we will now open the public hearing for the LCAP.
Good evening. I'm Peter Parenti, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for Albany Unified School District, and I bring to you tonight a presentation of our final draft of the Local Control Accountability Plan. I want to acknowledge so many of you who are in the audience, likely to at least hear the information, but also likely and hopefully to comment on it. So I appreciate your patience. We've had a really long and rich board meeting since 7 o'clock, and I know some of you guys are here to talk about some of these components. So I just want to start this month across all of our public schools in California. The public hearings on draft local control accountability plans are being heard. And as the director, I hold the primary responsibility to learn what this means for us and how to write a plan that will be accepted by our local board members tonight, our next board meeting, as well as a review panel and the Board of Education at the Alameda County. So we've got kind of layers of review and approval. So the following brief, I'm going to keep it brief as much as I can. We'll present some of the same information about the structure and the process of the local control accountability plan. And tonight we have the opportunity to hear the public comment and make final revisions before I bring this back to you on June 24th for final approval. And then I'll give you a brief timeline on what happens after that.
You're getting reverberation.
Okay, so tell me what. Is that better? Is that?
The echo comes from having the door open, so.
Okay, let's turn off the other mics then. Maybe that's part of it. Okay, so tonight I bring you the final draft of the Local Control Accountability Plan. It's a great opportunity, but it's also very new for us. We get to synthesize here some essential goals we have for our district. We are asked, actually directed, to measure them with quantitative metrics and to then reflect on our progress on an annual basis. So this is a second draft. I want to let you know that the template is very complex. There's an expectation to demonstrate a 3-year projection on each goal and action. There are lots of boxes and lots of room for confusion. So I'm going to go through just a piece again about the structure. I know we've revisited this before, but we have new audience members, members of the public who may be watching at home. So the next few slides are going to repeat what we introduced to you a few weeks ago. When I refer to this, I know that not everybody has a paper copy sitting here, but I'm referring to page numbers that are in my plan itself, not necessarily page numbers that are in the board packet, because those are two different separate page numbers. So the board packet being published on Friday and having my presentation ready, I used the page numbers at the bottom of the LCAP. Section 1 of 3, it's pages 5 through 8 of the plan, describes the engagement process used for our current plans. On the left column, I describe the engagement process for several of our current plans that we're operating from in our district, our strategic plan, our school site plans, our accreditation plan for the high school, and I use those as the basis to write the LCAP. And then on the right side, I write how those plans have had an impact on the goals that we wrote into the LCAP. Now, when we, Alan and I, were finally able to work together when he began a few ago now, and we had our first review panel at the county office, what they would call a preview panel, telling us 3 different members reviewing 3 different sections of our LCAP and telling us whether or not they could predict whether or not it would pass or fail, and whether they would say that in public session in July at the county level. And at our stakeholder engagement, I just want to say, of course, it's open for us to have more conversation about, but according to them, the descriptions that I wrote would pass for this time around. That would pass. Our second review, our second section of the LCAP is called our goals and our progress indicators. And in the LCAP, this is pages 8 to 24. It lists the goals that we have, and in all of the work that I've done consolidating current plans and speaking and consulting with staff members and ongoing calls and conversations and emails, we've come up with 18 goals. We have to have at least one for each state priority. We have more than 8, but we had to have at least one for each state priority. Now in this section, the goals are listed in the second column, and the yellow box gives you what I wasn't able to give you before. In our first review at Alameda County office, May 30th, which is just a little over a week ago, they said this part, as written before, probably would not pass. We didn't have enough statistical, quantitative measurements, and they needed to be included and updated. So in the previous draft that you saw, sometimes I gloss over 2 weeks and 4 weeks ago, you're going to see an increase in my attempt to add metrics that we could actually gather and reflect upon in the coming year. They also needed a revision in the way statements were made so that they were explicitly written as services to students, not services to staff, community, management, teachers, classified staff. They wanted it to be housed as a student-focused document. So statements that were made like staff will be provided with training in Common Core needed to be reworded to say students will receive instruction in Common Core. That's the goal. And that's an example of how that revision was requested of us. So since May 30th, I've been working through the plan to clean up some of that language. And then the third section called Actions, Services, and Expenditures. So this is the section that required the most collaboration, and Alan and I have worked every day since he's come on board, where I was finally, saying these are the goals that I've synthesized, and this is the action we have to take. Can you identify it in the budget and tell me whether or not we've already allocated this? And if so, we're going to hold to it. But this was the most challenging piece here, was that the LCAP, for many stakeholders, was turning into a place to house their future hopes and dreams for what they would like spent in the district. And so that contradiction and that tension between we've got a goal and we'd love to see an increase in that goal, but as just the director of CNI, I'm not in the position to start naming where in the LCAP I'm going to identify what we'll spend more of. The priority in spending, as some of you have recognized, still needs to be housed here. So I've had lots of calls and lots of people, and I think there are several of them here tonight, hoping that the LCAP can be a place where they can be acknowledged, where we can eventually see increases, and maybe this is the vehicle for prioritization. But at this point, that was definitely the tension that I experienced in engaging with stakeholders, is the message from the state is they'd be giving us more. The message from the state was the LCAP was going to describe how you're going to spend more. And in section 3, the tension there was, how do I allocate funds or describe the funds that we're using for our current services without treading into that territory of prioritizing them myself? And so Alan was a very astute student of my LCAP goals and would say, yep, we've got that line item, it's already accounted for in our budget, and this is how much we're spending in that budget. So none of these reflect an increase in more spending right now.
However, Peter, I think the board is always looking, thank you, is always looking for more data about what stakeholders actually want, so that as we go through the prioritization process, we have as much information about what people think is possible. Did you to have a summary of some of the things that you mentioned, even though I know you couldn't apply it, you didn't attach it to monies in the LCAP. Would at some future point or
Yes.
some appropriate point, would you be able to share that with us?
Absolutely. I think you'll actually see the messages embedded in many of the goals that, gosh, there's absolutely a strong hope here that something change and that something increase. And I'll name some of those goals for you tonight. The update here is that in the previous section, they said you need to update your metrics or it's not going to pass. In this section, the update came from the May revise, which again, Alan and I attended, and the switcheroo or the shift in the May revise was, remember what we promised earlier in January, we're now the governor saying we need to recoup some of that new money to pay for contributions for employer and employee pensions. Those significant increases kind of ate up all the ground that we were hoping for.
Well, his proposal.
Increase. His proposal.
I think it's a bargaining chip, but anyway. That's
Sure. So our next steps is to review and act on June 24th. And I'd like to open up for questions from you. I can go through in other ways, ask you to ask me questions about how you'd like. I could read all the 18 goals. I know we've got stakeholders here tonight that want to talk about a few of those specific goals. I do have to submit this along with our budget at the same time by June 30th to the county, wait for their feedback and approval, and of course, wait for the passage of a state budget.
Can I make a suggestion? I mean, it's very late. Maybe we should let some of the stakeholders who want to speak go ahead and speak so that they can go home if they want to. And then, okay, so that would be my first suggestion. And then, rather than plowing through the 18 goals, maybe you might want to identify particular areas that you think we might want to fund in the future, and I mean that you would start to identify some of the feedback that was given because we can look at the LCAP ourselves, but I can't extrapolate from here necessarily what most stakeholders thought. Okay, and then so I thought, can we start there with stakeholders perhaps?
Sure.
Let them go home.
Yeah, I also make the suggestion, if you think about it, you've already responded to a lot of specific questions, and if there are a couple of things in here you might want to revisit and say, well, we're going to change this or we're going to change that before we submit it. If there is anything like that, you could point that out tonight.
Sounds like a plan.
Again, stakeholder notes, your notes on stakeholder responses are very important. You say you responded to some of the stakeholder comments in your text here, but it would be very helpful to me if I could see some of the actual stakeholder meeting minutes, memos,
Yeah, well, we
whatever.
can't do that now.
No, not now. Just sometime in the next couple of weeks or whatever before June 30th. Thank you.
Great. All right, let's open it up then. It is a public hearing after all, so.
Thank you for your patience, especially this young man who's on the Albany football team.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to thank the parents and everyone who's here to kind of support us in our effort tonight. I want to start off just by saying that as athletic director at Albany Middle School and at the high school, I'm here to help you capture a very detailed picture about the current state of the middle school and high school athletic programs with regard to LCAP and the role that our program plays in student achievement or student engagement and academic achievement. Currently, the Albany High School athletic program fields a total of 36 athletic teams, and the middle school program fields a total of 19 teams, all in a variety of different sports. During the 13-14 school year, we had over 1,000 students participate in our athletic program, as noted in the LCAP report. As you can see, the athletic program serves a very large population of our students in Albany. The LCAP report also indicates that we will maintain our current enrollment in the middle school and high school athletic programs for the 2014-15 school year, although our trends indicate that we will likely experience growth over the next few years. We've also been exploring the possibilities of, in the future, offering athletic programs at the elementary level. In order to maintain our current programs, we receive a total of $100,000 from the district for the high school program and $15,000 for the middle school program. As Director Parenti also indicates in the LCAP report, the district will provide administrative support for the middle school and high school athletic programs. The district has accomplished this by providing a 0.8 FTE athletic director position to oversee both programs at the middle school and at the high school. The report estimates that this position will cost the district approximately $80,000 annually. We are immensely grateful for the continued support that we've received from the district for our programs. That being said, I'm also here to highlight the dependency that the athletic department has on parent donations and on the high school booster program, more commonly known as PAWS. And that's just in order to maintain our current programs. This dependency is not a sustainable solution to funding our athletic programs, and we believe that the district should take this into consideration when future budget planning takes place. We are currently tasked with fundraising over $100,000 annually in order to sustain our current athletic program at the high school, and an additional $30,000 to fund the middle school program. We have been successful in reaching this goal, but have heavily relied on a small group of legacy families in Albany that will soon graduate their last child from Albany High School, and it is only a matter of time before we find ourselves with a funding shortage. We need to take the necessary steps now to ensure that we have the funding sources in place to maintain our programs at the current level and to support future growth that we anticipate. Of all programs offered in the Albany Unified School District, we are one of the largest, if not the largest program in the district, and feel that it should be funded accordingly. We understand, by everything that we've heard tonight, that there are many programs within the district that require additional funding. But our goal tonight is to ensure that we are on the school board's radar should additional funding become available. We will now have two individuals speak to how Albany High School athletics has increased academic achievement and engagement in school, as well as address our concerns about funding.
Hello, my name's Lachlan Athanasiou. I've played football and run track at Albany High School for the last 4 years, and I'm here to talk to you about how my experience in the Albany athletic program has drastically increased my academic performance at the high school. I'll be attending Washington University in St. Louis in the fall, and I will be playing football and running track there, but they're a Division III school. They don't offer athletic scholarships. You can't get in off of athletics. You have to get in off of your academic merit. And despite the fact that I can't get in, that my athletics weren't considered in the admission process, I firmly believe that I was admitted ultimately because of athletics. I mean, all right, let me explain that. So what that means is that throughout high school, I believe I've gotten better grades because I was playing sports. I mean, very often back in middle school, I would get stressed out. I might just have a couple stressful homework assignments, and even that would be enough to push me over to the edge where I would just freak out and not be able to do it. And after only one season of high school football, my freshman year, I was having none of those problems. I was easily able to handle, much larger assignments, much larger tasks my teacher was giving me. I would stay up late, but if I had to stay up late, I would just think, you know what, I've done hard work before, this is no problem, I can do it. And I know a lot of my teammates also feel the same way. And just in day-to-day life, it's helped me out so much. If after school, I might have had a hard day, I've had a lot of work in the day, and all I want to do after school is just go home and sleep. I don't want to do anything. I know there are kids that go home and they go play video games for 4 hours, or they do who knows what with their friends. But for me, I go to sports practice, I work out, may run or do something like that. When I come home, I feel rejuvenated, and I'm able to work efficiently on my work, and I actually, during sports seasons, tend to have higher grades despite having less time to work because I work so much more efficiently. Because I've got blood flowing, I've got the endorphins flowing, and I just feel good after I've practiced. I mean, I could go on and on about how sports have benefited me academically, but really, my ultimate point, you guys saw a presentation earlier today about the AP classes, right? And that woman, she mentioned a couple indicators of academic success. The top one was a growth mindset. Got that from sports. Grit, definitely got that from sports. Self-efficacy was another one. I certainly got that one from sports. Ultimately, high school sports just can't be an afterthought, right? It's not just a couple kids that are benefiting or a couple kids that do better in school. It's a lot of kids that are doing better. And not only are those kids doing better, but also when there's this environment, of kids succeeding, of the sports helping them out in their academic life, I believe firmly that it contributes to the overall quality of the school. So I know the budget's tight, but more funding would definitely go a long way. Thank you.
Really, that was that was very well expressed.
Yes. And he's like that all the time. And he isn't even mine. I'm going to feed off of what Lachlan said, though. Again, my name is Linda Stromberg. It's crucial that during school time our kids get hooked into the community, that there's their first introduction to community. What school is a training ground to produce well-rounded, well-balanced, smart people who make our whole society better, right? That's what it's there for. And we need to hook and engage those kids. And kids get hooked and engaged in different ways. Lachlan clearly found it on the sports field. Some kids find it in jazz band. Some kids find it in the anime club in the library. However we can do it, it's our job to find a way to hook those kids into society, because it also makes them pay attention. It makes them show up for class, which gives you the money you need to support other programs too. That's why kids come, because they like it. It is their community. Basically, what Zeke asked me to talk about today is the people who participate in raising this $100,000 for sports in the high school. You can look around this room and you can find a handful of people. I mean, sometimes I laugh. I see Alan at so many things. It's like I thought we were related for a while there. I was like, but we don't have enough volunteers to sustain raising that $100,000. We have contributors who are always there. Some of those families are here tonight. And I'm not making a judgment about why we don't have volunteers or the fact that we don't. That's a whole nother discussion. I'm just telling you, from my 4 years of being actively involved in that fundraising, the pattern is clear. People don't come and work, or send their kids to work, or sell. And here's the rub, or here's the problem. We can't, you won't allow us, the law won't allow us to say, okay, you want your kid to play tennis, or you want your kid to play football. Part of that is you have to have your child and you engaged, and you have to be willing to participate and raise money and do those kinds of things. Well, we can't do that. But you then tell me I have to raise $100,000. I'm just them. I just showed up. But I'm now responsible for raising the $100,000. It's a catch-22 that's exhausting. And I'll tell you some specific examples. The second year I worked on the football fundraising program, a very nice man showed up to work with me, and I introduced him to what I thought was a new world. And he said, oh, I've done this, but I took last year off because I was exhausted by the amount of work he had to do. We had 7 home football games last year. Now, we made our money for football and plus, but the amount of time and energy that it took, I'm telling you, 5 or 6 people for a junior varsity and varsity game for 7 games, that's a lot of time, and you can't sustain that. As I said, my child's graduating. I know Zeke would love me to come back, but I'm not sure I'm gonna, Zeke. And here's the other thing about that. You take these positive, smart people, and you make them run in a maze over and over again. We repeat the same actions every year, instead of harnessing that energy of those people who are smart and capable. I mean, you had a college professor here, you had a person who worked in, all different kinds of fields. And a lot of those people show up. We're not utilizing their strengths to the benefit of the district and the kids in this district. We have them doing this goofy thing of raising money so that kids get to be engaged. We've got to find other ways to use those people in smarter capacities that benefit all of us. Okay, that's my pitch.
Other folks who want to talk about LCAP?
My name is Angela Thomas, and some of you guys know me as the SEIU rep. Nice to see you. all I want to say is, I've been following this budget. It's not good for districts like you, some of you that have seen me up here before. SEIU puts you guys in the boat with Acalanes and San Ramon, some of my areas. We get it. We are already on standby for your proposition. I've told our political people it's gone up the chain. And so far, we have a pretty good track record with parcel taxes that we have supported because we get it. It's falling on the district's shoulders to figure out how to self-fund, which sucks. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, sorry. But it does. I mean, because we all feel that, it should be funded. It's just that simple. A good education should be funded. And people would love to still raise extra money. They would still love to do that, but the core should be there. We shouldn't be doing everything that we're doing just to get to the baseline. So I want to just go on record, as Pat has so eloquently said, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for remembering what staff has done the last several years, the cuts that had been made. And even though a lot of my members are physically still here, their wages got cut. We're appreciative of the nice raise we got last year, but just coming up back to where we were. And it was beneficial to hear from our other classified union that, we're all in the same boat. We're all criers. I'm sitting over there in the corner crying with them, But that's a good thing. That is a good thing because it shows that we all have compassion one for another. Just like I see you guys just bust whenever a student comes and speak. You guys are so proud of your students. That's wonderful. That's a good place to start. And all I'm saying is, on behalf of my classified, and I'm going outside of the box and you're classified too, that we need to be whole.
Could I just, before you step away, could I just ask a quick clarification? You said wages got cut. Could you explain? I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm sorry, I hate to do that to you.
Actually, it was in the custodial. Some of the wages got cut because you eliminated certain positions. So what it resulted in my members bumping back to previous classifications that they held.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Susan Adams, CSEA again. Just a couple of things. First of all, for the athletic issue, my husband was a coach this spring at the high school. He had done it for years before and then took some time off and came back. And what we noticed this time is that it's like working for the company store. I can't tell you how many T-shirts we bought to give away so that we could make the fundraising goal. I mean, I'm all for helping out. And, I think the coaches all understand that that's what they have to do, and they're not going to get paid a lot of money for the work that they do. Probably 50 cents an hour, I think, is what it amounts to. But when it also gets to the point where you feel like, because there's not enough support from your team people, for whatever reasons, that you as the coach have to start kicking in the bucks to make the fundraising goal, that's kind of tough. We can afford it. Some people can't. Some of those coaches can't. So that's what I'll say about that. And then I just wanted to mention that in the LCAP, there was an error about the number of clerical staff at the high school. Just wanted to make sure that that gets corrected. There are not as many as were written in the plan. I don't want you guys to think that we're overstaffed. Thank you very much.
Hi there, my name's Karen Valterza Rabin, and I just want to say it is very true that for many kids, like this young man was saying, it is the reason they get into college. And for a lot of them, it is scholarships. And sports are so important, but for many of these kids, it's the reason they go to school. It is the reason they get up in the morning because they are on a team and it means so much to them. And it's the reason that they graduate high school. So I think that that's also a very important point to take note. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Sanchez. I'm a volleyball mom of a high school volleyball player. I'm so proud of Albany students, and I really appreciate you succinctly saying, Board Member Lowe, that your role here is to listen to the stakeholders, and thanks for giving us the opportunity. I wanted to reiterate all that was said, especially about grit and what I've seen it brought out in my daughter. And it may seem like the distant past, but I saw your faces this evening when the wrestling girls were being honored. And I know you get it, and I know that you have tough budget decisions to make, and I just want to be that stakeholder's voice and remind you when you sit down and you have your lists and you have to prioritize to remember sports. Thank you.
Other comments?
I love my own voice. My name is Yasmin Wooford. I have 2 boys at the high school. They play sports year-round. It is my whole life. It's very sad. But I would just remind you that for many of the students who play sports, it is a 10-week season. So when you have children come into the high school, and if they're a football player, they may not have had the opportunity to play before. For the freshmen, for the parents, and the students, it's a whole new world. It starts before school even begins. In 10 weeks, it starts, it ramps up, and it's over. Those freshman parents are often overwhelmed. It's only by the sophomore year that they are trained as volunteers. Then maybe junior year, when the child has to deal with college admissions, they start thinking, maybe I'm not gonna play. Maybe they get intimidated. You often have children who do not return to play the same sport. So if your child switches from sport to sport, or they only play for 2 seasons, you lose valuable volunteers. Zeke is not even a full-time athletic director between the middle school and the high school. He has to manage all the coaches, the assistant coaches, and a cadre of volunteers who turn over 10 weeks at a time. You know, it's tremendous logistics beyond the fact that your core client ultimately is our children. So forget about the kids. It's hundreds of adults that he has to deal with. I would just remind you that there's only one of me, and my children are very grateful that there's only one of me, but they hate seeing me at school. But I know so many students because every time I see them, I ask them, have you sold a t-shirt? Have you sold a coupon card? Have you fundraised any money? I didn't see you at the plaza. I didn't see you on Solano. And it's gotten to the point that when I show up at a meeting or at a game, parents move away from me because I yell at them for not wearing the right t-shirt. Because to them, it's a small way of demonstrating support for their student. Their student spends hours practicing. All I ask is the parents show up in the right color. But to me, every t-shirt I sell is $4 in the Paws General Fund. Okay, every coupon card those football players sell is a portion of a helmet. You know, the kids don't think that way, but the parents have to think that way. And the volunteers come and go, and they burn out. And we're not expecting a magic wand, we're not expecting $100,000, but just a little help in a few key places could make a huge difference for the amount of sleep that I get at night. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. So, board, we have a decision to make. We're now over time, and we need to extend the meeting just to complete this item. We have several other important items left on the agenda that I believe we need to get through. If we can be very efficient, I imagine we can do it in about 15 minutes.
I'll move to extend.
You haven't closed the hearing yet.
I have not. Just asking for an extension of time now.
I move to extend the meeting until 10:20.
All right, I'll second.
Okay, till 10:20 then. So, sorry, there's nothing to vote on.
Everybody agree?
Oh, I'm sorry on this. Does it, if everyone agrees?
Yes.
We'll extend to 10:20.
So do you need to close the meeting?
You need to close the,
Absolutely.
We're a bit naggy. It's getting late.
Absolutely. I'll close the public hearing. Are there other questions for Peter on the LCAP before we move on to the next item?
Thank you both of you, and Alan as well. It's a whole new process. I can't imagine how time-consuming it must be. We very much appreciate it. And I look forward later to actually getting some useful feedback from you.
And the LCAP will be back at the next meeting for final approval, so if you have any final comments, you can make them then.
I will.
So between now and then, final approval, could I get some of the stakeholder minutes, meeting minutes?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And nothing is likely to change in this before the approval vote at this point?
There are a few technical updates. For example, Susan Adams mentioned that the staffing ratios on goal number 3 for elementary, middle, and high school secretaries needs to be refined. So that's about correlating position control and FTE and where they work.
Okay.
There's a couple other small clarifications to make there, but nothing substantial.
Okay.
There were just 2 points I wanted to make. I'm sure you understand that Board Member Maris's request then means that every board member will need to get the same information. I'm sure you understand that, yeah. And then the other thing I was going to mention is I know that many of the people that were affected have left already, and I don't remember the details, but is the clerical support in the LCAP at the elementary schools remaining the same, or is it projected to be a little higher next year?
So that is an excellent question. As I said before, I did not want to use the LCAP as my place to start prioritizing where we would allocate new program or funding. So no, the current allocation that I described is the same as it is now.
Like 1.6 or whatever.
The 1.7 FTE to a ratio of 625 students at the elementary is our average.
Thank you very
not
much.
an average, is the max. Is the max.
It would be up to us
that would,
if we wanted to change that.
Right.
Thank you.
I think there was also a concern with the parcel tax vote coming up that this initial document reflect what is and not what might be.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
But if
So
I could,
we're okay,
yeah.
we're okay this year, but next year could be a problem, yeah.
Well, I know you asked me earlier what would be an area that I would have a recommendation on, and there is no one of these 18 that I want to advocate more than another, but in the bigger picture, this is not just about writing the report and getting it to you, but it's going to ask us to change our practices in gathering information and in gathering data. And so in all 18 goals, by having to refine our metrics, it initiates a responsibility on all of our parts to get better at collecting information. And right now, we face that enormous overall challenge that in every one of these, I'm concerned that we will just, in some ways, trip over ourselves trying to catch the statistics so that we know whether we're doing better or not.
I mean, the clerical staff barely have the time to do what they need to do. You can't imagine the amount of data entry or that sort of thing that would need to be done in order to calculate those metrics appropriately. I get your point.
That's all the assessments and interventions and all of the...
Well, there's certainly standardized assessment reports that we're going to get metrics on, but there's so many other areas here that ask us to measure things in new ways, like parent participation rates, staffing ratios that are effective, things like that.
Thanks very much, Peter. Let's move on to the first reading of the proposed child abuse prevention curriculum. Speak up and be safe, or speak up, be safe, as it's called.
Thank you. The curriculum is in the back of the room, and it's been on display for about a month at the district office. And I have brought it to all 3 of the elementary schools, and I've also met with the 6th grade teachers at the middle school. This comes out of a concern that was expressed particularly to our superintendent when she was in court over some litigation that the district faced last year. So we looked at a number of curricula, and I worked with Jason Matlin, who's our TSA for Safe and Inclusive Schools. And we recommended this to go forward to be reviewed by the teachers. And I also hosted a parent night last week or the week before, so that parents could review it. It's teacher-friendly. It has 2 lessons per year. Starting in first grade, they're 30-minute lessons, and they build all the way up until 6th grade when they become 50-minute lessons. They're scripted for the teachers. The materials are all there, provided for them. There is training available. There's online training, and we can also bring in training for the teachers. And I developed an FAQ document from the teachers about their questions and concerns. And I'm just recommending that the board, if there are any comments or questions about it.
Are these materials available electronically, or should we go pick up a copy?
They are all, yes, we have them all on a Google Drive. I printed them for the public review in the district office, but I'd be happy to share them with you. They're all on a Google Drive.
Send us a
Be happy to
PDF
do
or
that.
post them somewhere. Yeah, that would be great.
I think I can just share them, but yeah, I'll get them to you
share them would
electronically.
be fine, whatever's
Sure.
convenient. Yeah.
And the cost of the program?
It'll be $5 per student, and we have the opportunity to apply for a grant that will pay for it next year. So I'm working on that.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yeah, I was
Pay
excited
for it
about
for the coming school year, you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
So it'll be at no cost to the district. They were pretty sure we would get the funding if we applied.
All right.
And
Yeah.
this
Thank
is an annual program, so every 4th grader
Yes,
moves through it, or 5th
Yes.
grade, or whatever?
yes.
Good.
You need the board's approval prior to applying for that grant? Or,
I don't believe so. I haven't gotten the documentation yet,
okay,
but I don't believe it requires that.
okay.
I know,
Yes, Pat, please.
I know it's late, but, this is such an important
Yeah.
topic. And I just, I'm no expert in this area, so I just want to make sure that, that this seems to be, it's got to obviously be a multi-pronged approach in a district to make sure that children are safe.
Right.
And that they know how to be safe. But this is I assume that this is a research-based strategy which is considered effective.
How you measure effectiveness in a negative is difficult, as the folks who have created this. The curriculum is developed from the research about what they know works, how to teach kids to know about boundaries and being able to speak up for themselves. Measuring the effectiveness is a little more tricky. They did pilot it in 1,000 classrooms in Florida. They then measured the next couple of years. And the increase in children coming forward and saying that they were experienced abuse, it went up in the first year and then remained fairly steady. But how you can measure whether something that this curriculum taught a child and prevented something from happening is very difficult to measure.
Yeah, that's a fair answer. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and so this will come back next board meeting?
Yes, it will, for a second reading and hopefully adoption.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let me just ask, are there any of these are all fairly quick items, I think. Are there any that are easily postponed until next meeting, according to your
I'm worried our
thinking?
student board member has finals tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
We could probably postpone E, Peter?
The obsolete materials. We'll adopt that in about 30 seconds, I have
Yeah,
a
I
feeling.
think
So I'm not
so.
sure, okay. Okay, so if it's the last one, we'll wait.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, in that case, let's move on. The next item is an action item to approve district local education agency plan addendum for Title I compliance.
Correct. So I think last month or the month before, I brought you the Title III program improvement plan, because we are in program improvement for both our English learners and then also for Title I, which is targeted federal funds for low socioeconomic students. So the district is now in program improvement. As a result, we had to develop an addendum to our local education agency plan. I just adapted the Title III plan to Title I and attached funding to it. And I've already uploaded it to the state, but it is pending board approval.
Mm-hmm.
How does our change in assessment methods going to affect this going forward?
So the state and the county office allowed us to do one of two things. We could develop our own assessments to be used this year, or we could address the implementation of Common Core. And in working with the staff, they opted for the implementation of Common Core. So it basically addresses implementing, I think I said a minimum of 75% of Common Core across the district or something like that for next year. And that's we have to develop a tool to determine how we measure that, which is part of the plan.
So how long do we have to address these targets and
Well, the targets,
achieve the targets? Or?
The targets were that 90% of our low socioeconomic students were to be proficient in English, language arts, and math on the California Standards Test. And since last year was the last year that those were administered, that's now not useful information. So they're going to kind of give us a pass for this coming year, and it stays the same. We're supposed to get out of program improvement. The idea is to get out in 2 years.
Within that 90% figure, does that include students who are new to the district?
It does exclude students who have not been in United States schools for 12 months. It does not exclude new students new to the district.
Okay,
That's interesting, though, because for our district, that's a significant, for some districts, that would not be a significant population. But for our district, that might be.
It's not significant, but there is a number of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So if they weren't helped wherever they were before, we pay, and
Correct.
if they don't become fluent in 1 year, we
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
How large is this population?
Which population?
The students that are under this.
Well, we have approximately 30% of low socioeconomic students.
Wow.
Well, I'll move that we approve the District Local Education Agency Plan Addendum for Title I compliance.
I'll second.
All in favor of approval?
Aye.
That is approved unanimously. Item B is the resolution on the reduction of classified school services.
And this is specifically a sign language interpreter.
Questions from board members? I had a question from Ron, who can't be here tonight, but he wanted to know, and I'll ask for him, do we anticipate no need for a sign language interpreter for the coming school year, or do we already have staff to take on the task? How are we making up the difference, essentially?
There's no need for the services for next year.
That we know of now.
That we know of right now.
At this time.
And if there were a need,
then we would
okay.
hire someone.
Yeah, we've let some contracts for this kind of service, so we could have that as a backup, is that? Yeah.
Or we could hopefully rehire the person we're letting go.
What was that person doing this past
Provides
year?
services for students.
Do I have a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 2013-1431.
1430.
Did I not say that right?
No, you did say that right. I just noticed that on the bottom of the page it says 1414, which is the correct number.
I see. The two numbers are different.
You're talking about the first page of the backup?
And the recommendation.
You're right. They're different.
Approve Board Resolution 2013-1414, and that the item on the
In the
top
box.
is right. Is 2013-1431. Well.
Oh well, we'll just go with.
The
It's
reduction of
31.
classified
It's
schools.
31 is the correct number.
31. Thank
So
you.
my motion stands.
Okay, I'll second.
All in favor of approving the resolution, say aye.
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 So that's unanimous. Moving to C, approve independent contractor agreement with a construction company whose name I can't read at this distance.
Christensen.
Christensen, thank you, for remodeling the 4 classrooms at Albany High.
Really self-explanatory unless
Yeah.
you have questions.
And this is to support the move of the McGregor students to the.
This is to support the middle school, who
Wow.
currently has 2 classes at the McGregor campus,
Right.
along with, they also have 3 sections of culinary. So this is to address the overcrowding at the middle school with the loss of the classrooms at the McGregor site when it is demolished.
The
Okay,
temporary.
and what happens when we rebuild McGregor? Do we remodel these classrooms?
We are only leasing them for 3 years, and we can terminate the lease at any time prior to that if the buildings go up at McGregor.
Oh, these are not the portables, though.
No, these
Oh,
are
I'm sorry.
modifications of the high school
These are
class.
the high school.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is late.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
D.
It's
D has
late.
some
It's
portables on
late.
it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the yes, this is in part to address the McGregor transfer,
Right.
but it is also to address the move of culinary up there.
Right.
And then also, there's also some overcrowding at the high school, so they're splitting a couple of extra large classrooms into 2 and doing some office moves and that sort of thing.
But before we approve this, I just have a quick question. So I did understand that, Dawn was going to have a question and answer session with the high school staff about issues related to this. Has that happened already?
That happened this afternoon.
Okay, was there much attendance? Or?
He said about 10. Alan was also there. 10 or 12 people?
Yes, there's close to 20 people.
Oh, sorry. 20.
Okay.
They're not in here carrying pitchforks, so maybe it went okay.
Right.
So they-
Just
so
wanted
they-
to check. Okay, thank you.
Alan.
So there was discussion of the impacts of these classroom changes with the people who are affected, the staff?
Yes. So we opened it up to Q&A for them to address, or just for them to ask some of their concerns and logistics on how this project's going to work.
Oh, excellent.
So were they supportive? Were there any?
Yes.
They just wanted information, I'm sure.
Correct.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'll move that we approve the independent contractor agreement with MR Christensen Construction.
I'll second.
All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Moving to D, this is the independent contractor for the electrical in the 7 classrooms, which we've already approved, the modulars.
Yes, correct.
Questions from the board?
Just confirmation this is already included in the budget.
Yes.
Already in the budget.
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move we approve the independent contractor agreement with El Cerdo Electric.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the contract, say aye.
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 Aye. That's unanimous. Item E, approve the obsolete instructional materials for resale, recycle, or disposal, which we do from time to time. This comes up. Are there any questions from the board?
I don't think I can, no, I'm sorry. It's getting late. Is there any, I'll move this.
I'll second.
That we approve the
I'll clarify.
obsolescence of instructional materials.
Resale, recycle,
Right.
disposal.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the resale and disposal of obsolete items. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it's unanimously approved. We are right at the end. I think we can, without extending, just allow for any board or superintendent comments.
I have about 2 seconds, well,
Great.
longer than that. I just wanted to make a note that at the senior awards ceremony on Friday, there were 3 McGregor students who received awards.
Yeah.
And the McGregor graduation is tomorrow at 1 o'clock at the district office. And the AMS promotion ceremony is Thursday at 5 o'clock at the high school gym. And I also want to make sure that the board and the public know that a resolution calling for a parcel tax election was delivered to the County Board of Supervisors and the Registrar of Voters. So that has been accomplished.
Excellent, thank you.
And we don't know what letter the measure will be given until August 13th. So that's it. And we have a few additional steps to complete. And Jackie is working diligently to she's got a document on the website soliciting board candidates. So it's a one document with links on anything that they could possibly want to know about how to apply, where to go, forms to fill out.
Oh, excellent. Thank you
On the
so much,
website?
Jackie.
On,
Have to thank
on the
Jonathan
website.
also.
Front page?
It will be distributed. It's one that I shared with board
Right.
members to ask if it was all right to share your contact information with people who are interested in running for the board. And Jackie's taken it further and added some more links and information. So I guess that'll be going out
Thank you, Jackie.
fairly soon. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
thanks.
much.
And finally, we have a district newsletter coming out that will list all of Valerie's meet and greet appointments. So that's coming out, I hope, very soon, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I only have to say, I know you, sorry, Alan, why don't you go first? I'll finish as board
Okay,
president's
fine.
appropriate. Yeah.
I just wondered if the Ocean View promotion conflicts with the other graduation that night, AMS, or do they normally do it before 5?
Yes.
So,
That's usually an afternoon activity,
okay,
so it
thank you.
shouldn't conflict.
That it? I'm only going to say that we've set a date for a retreat with the new superintendent, a board retreat that will be publicly noticed and an open meeting. The date is July 10th. It's a Thursday. It'll be in the morning from 9 to 1.
Okay.
It'll be somewhere in the district to be determined.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thanks.
No problem. That's it. Board meeting is adjourned.